LWUB. My name's Anthony Malum, and I'm joined today by Zats. And oh man, do we have a matchup for you today? Semifinals between these two. Both had such strong seasons, Zats.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a pleasure to be here, as it always is for Galeria. These are the two essentially best teams at the moment. They've obviously had very strong tournaments. They've had a great bracket going through. I don't know if in fact, I don't think any of them have dropped a game for either of these sides in the lower division. So I'm expecting fireworks today. It's still only best of three. They've just got to get through here. I don't believe they go. Oh no, they would go down into the losers bracket as well, I believe, but still, this is for all the marbles. This is to go into the final, and like I say, these are two really strong teams in what is a really crazy meta at the moment. It's so hard to predict. I'm just pumped. I'm looking forward to this.
Me too. I love semifinals because in semifinals, you always get that kind of there's more heart almost than finals in a way because finals there's all the planning, there's a lot of intensity, but in semifinals you're kind of almost trying not to look ahead and it happens really quick. You don't get a lot of time to breathe. You've probably known a good idea of your opponent based on how seeding works. You probably could have guessed who you go up against. So there's a lot to it. And like you said, but this is before losers bracket, and losers bracket is a grind. So the last thing you want to do is fall down there. So a lot on the line in so many different aspects.
Yeah, full agree. You don't want to have to go back down there, play against a team that you've probably played against before. It's just a bit of a grind. Actually, if you can get to that final, you've got time to prepare. You've got time to think about, hang on, what we're going to draft. I'm sure they'll have thought about that for today as well. And I am expecting to see some spicy stuff. As I said, with the meta at the moment, it feels like we're in between metas, if that makes sense. A lot of the picks at the moment are kind of, what we've had from the end of the last split. We've got what's being played in ranked at the moment by all the high level players. And really, we're starting to see a lot more sort of comfort picks come through and a lot of target bans coming through. And that's what I expect to see today. Because again, both these teams know each other very well. They will be targeting certain players that they think are actually real threats on certain picks.
You started us off on the perfect note, targeting. That Thanatos ban is a target ban on the jungler of LWUB. One of the few teams I've actually cast multiple times this season of GSL has been LWUB, and every single time that Thanatos sneaks through, more traditionally I've seen it on Garrett, though, interestingly, but we have Asta listed as jungle, so interesting to see if there could be potentially a last-second switch-up of roles, or maybe just kind of getting in the heads of their opponents. Lots of interesting options to go, but everything else so far, pretty standard.
Yeah, I would say so. The Thana has sort of snuck up a little bit in terms of potency. I do think that an execute is always going to be valuable, so I do like the Thanatos ban. But as you say, everything else looks very standard. Getting rid of that Baba Yaga for the final ban, that makes perfect sense. I think this is just the pick for the mid lane at the moment. A couple of others are slightly more debatable. I think the Kali is an interesting one. She did receive a bit of a nerf. There are some other junglers up, things like the Thor, which didn't get such a strong nerf, but instead they're going to orient over to the solo for their first pick for the King Kais.
And with Jormungandr being locked in first, King Kais is announcing to the world that they want an aggressive solo lane and they're going to have a damaging front line, to say the least. And then LWUB already hovering this Hachiman. The ADC for LWUB has stuck by Hachiman tried and true all season long in Stormy Shadows. And with that getting locked in, we've got pressure versus comfort to start us off.
Oh. Yeah, that's a very good way of putting it, actually. Jormungandr brings so much pressure in that solo lane in terms of wave clear, in terms of poke. You can take the totem, you can focus down the buff as well. It's just such a strong pick at the moment. I do like what LWUB have picked up in response. Ganesh, I know, is a Garrett pick, and I'm a big fan of it into anything. I do think it's more seen as a counter pick nowadays, but actually, a 3-second silence is always going to be valuable in any game as long as you use it correctly. And the Hatchman, of course, still a very strong hunter. We're generally seeing hunter players either orient towards these kind of sort of safe hunters that can dive with the backline as well, if that makes sense. So this Hatchman's been picked up quite a lot, or they're orienting the complete other direction and going for these magical ADCs. But this time they've gone for the Hatchin. It looks like King Kai's going to hold out on that magical ADC or general ADC pick for just a little bit longer.
With the Emoja getting locked in after the Thor, we already have a really good idea of the team fight, not just the plan for Kinkais, but we know how that team fight's going to get. We've all been into that composition, and that is not fun. You are getting dove in every direction, and you have nowhere to go. The one thing good for LWUB, Zats, is they have a lot of options still on the table, so knowing already that the team comp of Kinkais is so aggressive and the team fight is so good, is Sun Wukong a good start, and what else can they do to kind of prepare for that dive?
I do like the Sun Wukong. It will match up just fine into the Jormungandr. Don't have any problems with that. I am generally concerned by the top 3 that the Kinkais have been allowed to pick up. I think these are all arguably the best picks in their roles right now. That does concern me a bit, but it is exactly as you said, and I'm going to use it again. Pressure versus comfort. And LWUB, they picked 3 picks that I'm sure they know they're very comfortable on. They know they can play to a very high level. And actually, sometimes that's more important, especially in these kind of tournament games. Just play what you know, play what you're good at. And actually, that can sometimes end up getting the better of what seems to be a really meta draft that so far is coming out for the Kinkais.
A lot of times you see that. It's more common, certainly, in lands and such, where kind of a unique meta to the tournament develops. But a lot of times in amateur playoffs, you'll see sort of a mini meta apply. A lot of it comes to do with the aggression, the mindset. You tend to kind of put it above any other leagues you might be in, or any other competitions you might be in, just because you're in playoffs. So you start to see not necessarily full-on metas like you might see in a LAN of SPL, but you'll certainly see more commonplace stuff. With the Agni, Xbalanque, Sasano, and Humbots bans, we have continued along the meta course. A bunch of characters we've been seeing
I will
very
vanquish
commonly.
all evil from
With a
this
Yu Huang
world.
lock-in, we're kind of taking interesting routes. Give me your thoughts on the Yu Huang, Zats.
Always like a Yu Huang, one of the safest characters in the game. His poke is very, very good as well. I think his damage is always going to be relevant because of the range that you can get, mostly from that Dueling Dragons, and a good mid player that can hit both swings of the Dueling Dragons and push your enemies right where they don't want to be. That can really change a team fight in your favour. But he is a bit slow to get online, and that is and has always been the biggest problem for Yu Huang, and especially at the moment as well with mid builds. We are starting to see some sort of hybrid builds coming in with some defense. We're seeing the return of Tablet a little bit.
They will all obey their goddess.
I think Yu Huang can use that perfectly fine, but all of that means very slow laning phase. And actually, I'm expecting to see maybe from the Kinkais, maybe a really high pressure, high wave clear, high poke god in that mid lane. But we'll see what they choose to do here.
Banning out the Agni and picking Yu Huang always strikes me as a smart play because the characters offer very similar stuff. And the Discordia as a response, not necessarily to the Yu Huang, but something that you've touched on is that for both Yu Huang and Hachiman, they're going to be safe in the back line and able to really put their damage out in a way that doesn't put them too in aggressive a position. But Discordia responds to that really well.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point. Not only, I mean, obviously, if you can get a good strife over the wall, I think she has great fight potential, especially in these sort of late jungle team fights, especially around Fire Giant. That's a real way of getting into the backline, as well as the Thor and the Jormungandr that are going to be coming out. We already mentioned that earlier, but the dive is going to be a lot to deal with. Now, as you say, LWUB do have the tools to deal with this, but then suddenly there's going to be a golden apple of Discord flying through the jungle, and actually there's nothing your Ganesh can do about that, and that is going to be the key, I think, for me. Is yes, you've got lots of dive, but you need to make sure it's coordinated properly, and that you need to be getting the relics, and you need to decide whose job that is. It's probably going to be Thor, and then you need to allow some space for follow-up from this Jormungandr. Make sure the Ganesh is well zoned out of the way, can't use that Ohm effectively. Once you do that, then you can start getting at this backline. But I will say that LWUB in response will be looking to dive almost just as much, actually. So they do need to watch out the counter dive, if you like.
Yeah, I think we were all waiting on that jungle to see if LWUB was going to take that passive backline approach and kind of just see what their Sun Wukong does and wait around that. But with the Fenrir lock-in, I think it's clear that neither of these teams are afraid to fight, and LWUB's response is the best defense is a good offense.
Yeah, I am thinking about it more, and actually, I do think that what they offer really well at the moment is, along with that sort of safe backline that can shred a front line, you've got the displacement with the Fenrir, which kind of I do think changes up their draft a little bit, because now you're looking to pull in. It doesn't matter who. I mean, preferably, actually, you were looking at the Emoja in team fights, and you've got enough CC, enough displacement, and enough shred to just burn down that Emoja before she can do anything. But again, the problem is going to be the King Kais have so much space.
That will be the problem, and it's going to be something that needs to be answered quickly. You need space, and we need to figure out, will pressure pull through or will comfort pull through? We're in game once again. My name's Anthony Malman. I'm joined by Zad's Ginger Archer. We'll be taking us through production today. Kinkai's versus LWUB semi-finals. Going to be a exciting one at that. As we get into laning phase, that's what are some things we need to look for early to get an idea of where this game's going to go?
Well, I would say dual lanes are going to look pretty even. Hachiman, Ganesh, very good clear, but none of it really competes with the Emoja and the Ishtar. That's arguably the best level 1 clear in the game. I wonder if that was intentional to swap the buffs there. It's certainly not a bad thing to have a purple buff on your Emoja, but nonetheless, I do think that LWUB, their clear is perfectly fine. They're very safe with their clear as well and their poke. So it's not like they're going to be fighting in particular in this lane. So I'd actually be looking maybe towards this mid lane. That's going to be where the real pressure happens. Again, already pressure coming out. Whoa!
And the Brutalize will find the first blood off of that pressure. Totally caught us off guard there. It came through so quick. I mean, how could they even have responded?
And that's just the pressure that Fenrir brings. I'm using the word pressure a lot because there's so much of it across the map, but Fenrir does that better than most junglers. The level 2 is incredibly powerful just because of the base damage that this character offers. Bear in mind that Fenrir also has a very easy to confirm stun. Once that landed, the Brutalize is free. They don't have a way to interrupt that yet. The root's not going to do it. And there's a solo kill again. That's twice now I've been caught off guard by 2 early kills in this game, and are already swinging in the way of, well, it's hard to say at this point, but first blood, either way, going the way of LWUB.
Yeah, Zenico was just able to walk up to the tower line for free. Apple Toast just had to respond and kind of face tank it, and I don't think anyone, including Apple Toast, expected that much damage to come out of tower line. Thought it might be a bit tankier now. Gank coming out from the Fenrir in dual lane. The jump goes first. Brutalize, though, gotta be careful under a tower. Thankfully, the Ganesh was tanking, and LWUB will back up, but now they've got pressure in duo. They have pressure in mid from a solo kill, or excuse me, the first blood, and a solo kill in solo lane, and they're still not done as Tatri pushed up into wave. With Fenrir still lurking, they gotta be a bit more careful kind of everywhere right now. I mean, the only thing you've got positive right now is solo lane, but that could change quickly because Jormungandr is a fairly stationary target.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. And when you've got, again, the CC that you have from the Wukong, from the Fenrir, that is something you can look at. But again, Jormungandr just kind of ults on out of there, and will be building into the Chronos Pendant early, will be Zenico. So again, that also means you've got that ult more often. You're so safe in that lane, and you clear so easily. I'm torn in 2 minds as to whether you should actually be focusing the Jormungandr or whether you should just kind of leave that lane alone now. Jormungandr's gonna farm very efficiently. Wukong shouldn't fall too far behind, although with this Soul Eater build as well, I do think it slows him down a little bit. I'm not the biggest fan of it, especially into a Jormungandr who is anti-healing you all the time with this Tainted Steel. But yeah, maybe you're just best to ignore it. Focus on keeping this mid laner down. You've already killed Brex once. Maybe that's where you're looking at.
You gotta decide early too in these semifinal games. You have to set your own pace. You can't really let your opponent dictate where you go.
And not be indecisive like me.
Yeah, exactly. But even the indecisiveness could prove to be a problem, and both teams need to be aware of it. Commit to something, I guess, is my big takeaway.
Sure.
Tatri poked out below half, will have to retreat. under the tower. The dual lane pressure continues. Mounted archery and Dharmic Pillars will find the kill. Tatri just unable to respond, but the Thor was able to respond. Looking for Storming Shadows, gonna find the response. Already a 2-2 game, but Asta the Pasta does not want to be let out. Jump in,
hammer!
Catches the hammer. Now Ragnarok comes out, but he's stuck in River's Rebuke. Gonna pre-beads on the slam down and find it with the basic attacks. Cheeto gets dropped by Asta. So the response was good after an exciting play from the dual lane of LWUB. Makes it 3-2 so far, and you can't get more action-packed than that.
Yeah, very exciting stuff. I think overall, I think that was a 1-for-1, right? It was started off with the kill onto Tap. No, excuse me. That was a kill onto Tatri. Again, that mounted archery and the double ultimates, essentially. You cannot escape away from that. And that is something that this Ishtar can be punished for quite easily. She's very immobile for a hunter, even with a dash that can be very easily interrupted. But again, they add to that with what looked to be a good rotation from Cheeto. They get the response they need, but actually it's Asta who is doing his job as well, if not better, because actually your job as the Fenrir is either to keep up with the Thor or to completely ignore the Thor and go somewhere else. And this time, Asta went, I'm going to follow you and I'm going to make this worth my while by getting the kill, getting the hammer off of Cheeto. And it's a great kill, despite the River's Rebuke that was coming out as well. A good response from them. They need to keep up this pace, I think, because if LWUB can keep the ball rolling, get this Fenrir even more ahead, already has the cooldown reduction online, this could get out of control pretty quickly if they're not careful.
I want to talk about something you just pointed out to me, because you mentioned, do you kind of deal with the Thor, or do you try to ignore it? And you said the same thing for the Jormungandr, and I feel like that alone kind of can spell an interesting picture for Kinkai's team fights. Thor slams down, gets the stun, not too much damage is able to follow up quite so early, plus Celestial Flight was up, so the damage and response is really good to the Thor, and the Dharmic Pillars is dropping him even lower, but there's just not enough people in mid right now for LWUB to chase that all the way down, so Thor, it's his lucky day.
And it's exactly as we said. Look what Asta's doing. Asta, in response, going to invade that blue buff. And that's all you need to do, right? Thor is going to probably out-rotate you with the Ample of Dawn. Semi-global, doesn't matter whether he hits it or not. And actually, it ends up being some good return damage from Zoria in the mid lane. But Asta is like, okay, I don't need to rotate to that. I can go and invade a blue buff. I can take away a bit of pressure from Zenico on this Jormungandr. It's exactly what I want to see from a jungler. I think it's so important. It's what makes a jungler all the more effective, is how do you rotate around the map, and how do you counter what the enemy jungler is doing. I think it's so important, and I love what I'm seeing so far from Asta. Long may it continue. They need to keep it up, as we say. They will be a little bit slow thanks to that tablet build, but a jump in. But unfortunately, the dash just off the mark from Garrett.
LWUB has so much pressure in the mid lane, but they just don't have... It feels consistent like they just need Asta to be really hovering and camping out the mid lane, because they keep getting so much pressure and so much damage, but they're able to walk away at below half HP consistently, and that's frustrating early for Kinkais. But while frustrating, not leading to kills, which that is important, because you don't want to give up leads. We were worried about that with the Fenrir before. You just can't let those leads happen. Now we've got two running into Fenrir deep in the jungle by shield buff. Fenrir going to get aggressive onto Yamoja, but responded to by the Thor, so will back up and play it a bit safer.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
bit of a difference in damage there. That double tap not really doing as much as you'd hope at this point. Only level 7. Possibly is leveling the 3, actually. That would be interesting. Cheeto is doing that, so that's fair enough. Again, that suggests that actually probably not looking to fight as much as Asta is. I completely understand that into a Fenrir. You can't really match the base damage, as we mentioned before, from this Fenrir, even though you can out-rotate it. So I don't mind that. Suggests a more farm-oriented route. That being said, not actually farming as efficiently. And again, that partly comes down to the invades that's coming out from this Fenrir. They are invading response, actually.
Ragnarok will come out and bring him deep, but Thor still had Anvil of Dawn to head up into the sky. Will not dunk, just a bit too low. Going to use it as an escape. And Zenico, plenty tanky enough and still has World Serpent to get away if need be. So an aggressive play in the jungle. They almost got the steal, but have to play it safe. But it's not going to stop Fenrir from lurking. does not run into Thor, runs back into Zeniko. Damage going to come out early. Brutalize followed up, but Hammer was there. Double tap is good. Berserkers follows. Now the escape begins for Asta the Pasta, and he will not escape. Zeniko will find that kill. 2 now for the Jormungandr. Just overplaying his hand a bit there.
Yeah, alarm bell should be ringing. There's more so as the ult hits.
Blaze Retribution was good, but the mounted archery was even better to get away. So Storming Shadow is not going to be caught out and picked up by Tatri. This time we'll be able to escape. You know, that was something we haven't even been able to touch on because there's been so much aggression from these junglers, is how active this dual lane has been so far.
Yeah, it's been really surprising, actually. You know, it's something I said, actually, this lane might stall out a little bit, but certainly not the case. They're dashing aggressively, and the dash is in response.
Jolt is just so close. It's basic for basic, auto for auto. Tatri just backing up, not going to go more aggressive. Ooh. You know, Zats, I cast these two teams week 1 of GSL, and the two of them did the same thing on the same characters, just non-stop action between the two of them. I think they even traded solo kills, so I respect it. I love that. It gives me, like, old-school Barazap vibes.
It does, doesn't it? And actually, it's not something we see as much anymore. Both hunters are going the pretty much standard builds into the Devo gloves, into the executioner. Doesn't really lend itself to early fighting, but again, if both of you are building the same thing, then why not? And again, both have pretty strong early games, very good poke potential. I don't mind it at all. And when you've got dashes that you can use aggressively, it kind of lends itself to what is clearly very aggressive playstyles from both these ADCs. And yeah, I love to see it. It's just whether the junglers will be aware of that and whether they will look to punish some of this potentially quite forward positioning, shall we say.
We're coming up on 11 minutes, which means we're getting close to Beacon. It's currently 3-3, and as you saw, Golden Experience is close. The Thor has been certainly trying to keep it from being from being close. Same thing with Asta the Pasta. Both of these junglers are doing everything they can to keep this game from being close, but the options are just not there. And I mean, with 11 minutes and the objectives aren't getting pulled currently, it's so close. That means Beacon's going to be a war zone. Thor lurking for dual lane as Storming Shadows was pushed up, but he's just at a range of Anvil of Dawn, but not at a range of the wall and Blades of Retribution, but he saved mounted archery, and that pays dividends as he gets away. Now Discordia in trouble, Dark Pillars and Ragnarok both used, but it's the Brutalize that'll clean up the Discordia. So LWUB will pick up a kill in mid, going off of the survived gank in duo, which, I mean, they'll take that with a thank you kindly.
Yeah, a bit surprising again when you've got your. I mean, when you've got your jungler in that long lane, you kind of know. Okay, maybe I need to sit back a bit here because that Fenrir is not on the map. Dueling Dragons just off the mark. Probably wouldn't have got the kill, but I love that. Zoria is going for that. Absolutely take that shot. But yeah, going back to that, you know the Thor is in left lane. You don't have eyes on Fenrir. You've got to be a little bit careful. And we actually saw anyone that's been playing Smite for a while, a little bit of the old shake and bake coming back into it with the Ragnarok into Dark Pillars.
I
used
love
to be
that
newer
combo.
old back then, but it doesn't work quite as well anymore. And you know, it's still pretty potent if you're not too careful. But either way, it was just that damage coming out from the Fenrir. Already has 2 items online, 30% CDR. Very, very scary prospect. How do they deal with it? Well, they've already got 1 kill onto Asta. They do have a little bit of interrupt, and that's really what you're looking for from these stuns, from the Thor, from the Emoja. But hang on, Zeniko is rotating to this.
Rose Rebuke has already been used, but like you said, Zeniko's deep in the backline, going to force both relics out of Zoriat, who has to just get away. Fenrir follows. I mean, there's nothing that LWUB was able to do there. They just got ran at and had to respect it and concede the fight. I mean, I guess it works out better because they're able to get out safely, but I mean, that was dominating. Now Storming Shadows caught out with a Thor, but not going to go aggressive. Gold Fury is the main topic. Storming Shadows can lurk, but it's already at half health, and now he walks back towards the dual lane. The next hope is Ganesh, who's already there, has Dark Pillars. That comes out, but Kinkais will get the Gold Fury. Now, I'm not liking where Garrett is. Ganesh has to get out of there. Will be safe, though. Same thing with Zeniko, able to use World Serpent. So clean Gold Fury. That's what Kinkais wanted. they wisely took advantage of the pressure they created and making LWUB retreat and moved right to gold.
And what I love about it is it all started with LWUB actually taking that middle objective. And actually, well, the beats have been forced. Lots of damage, but it's a 1v2.
Unchained was already used, and before
Right.
anything else could come out, Asta's going to get dropped. Just got cleaned up in time, but Storming Shadows is rushing over, and Eagle Eye will find the kill on Cheeto to make him pay for Asta. So jungler for jungler there. It's 4-5.
Wow.
Pyromancer getting pulled in response at 14 minutes and 20 seconds, but they don't quite have the damage, so they're going to have to back up, especially with that Sung Wukong hanging out around the corner.
Really love the map
duo,
play of
though.
these two teams. Whoa, look at that.
Dueling Dragons, will it hit?
Ooh,
Yes, it
wow.
will. Just, you talked about the aim of Dueling Dragons and how they need to be on point. That was a really good sign of things to come later.
Because actually, the rear dragon, as it were, wasn't really in position, but was able to just meet them up in the middle. And actually, what helped there was quite a few stacks on that Tablet of Destinies and the Book of Thoth. Means that you didn't need a lot of it to hit. You just need enough, and one proc of that extra damage on the tablet, that was really, really impactful to get that kill. Yeah, on the mark for Zoriat. Love to see it. Level 15 at this stage, farming incredibly well. This is the safety that this Yuang has. And for all Cheeto's rotations around the map, has not been able to effectively deal with this Yu Huang. In fact, the only time we saw it was, I think Zoriat had used the Dragonflight to get back into lane into a team fight. Jormungandr came around the corner, was able to get both relics, but other than that, you're going to need to hope for a little bit more poor positional play, and so far we've seen very little of it from Zoriat. I'm not sure how they're going to punish that as we start to get into this sort of mid-game team fight stage.
We're coming up in 16 minutes, 4-6. You saw the experience difference, and like Zats was talking about, it's pretty significant. But Gold has remained so close this entire game, which I think is a testament to what you've been talking about, which is the junglers being everywhere, the ADCs fighting it out, the solo laners rotating a lot. Everyone's doing the correct things, and when that happens, you get the same Gold. You get close experience. I mean, as you said, the big lead is in mid currently, but otherwise, it's really not that crazy, and we're seeing a 2-level lead in solo as well, so that is worth considering. But it's just interesting how close these teams have been able to keep it at 16 minutes, and that worries me come the 25-minute, 30-minute mark, potentially, on how close this game could be.
And that was something I touched on a little bit earlier, was the map play from both these teams looks very, very strong, because you saw that first Gold Fury take. It was very, very clean. They coordinated properly with their solo laner. That was key to opening the door, having won the previous team fight. They didn't kill anyone, but they got relics and they got health bars low enough that they could just walk up and, with the zoning from Jormungandr, take the Gold Fury. But interestingly, it was King Kai's who got the Pyro in response, but they Fenrir onto Garrett.
There was a shake and bake you're talking about, and it's going to be enough for one kill, but the big thing is LWUB's health bars are not looking as good as they should have, and that's going to be 2 dropped already for them. Kinkai's just got the better of what should have been a clean fight for LWUB.
Yeah, using the ult aggressively. We talked about it in the picks and bans. You're actually perhaps looking to use this Ragnarok on the Emoja. Doesn't have the beads, I believe. That's an obvious target, but at this stage of the game, your damage isn't really there. Even with an Apple of Discord, you've got the King Kai's online, but it just feels like Ryugami has actually been able to farm up this Prophetic Cloak, is actually just a bit too tanky at this stage. That's the real problem, but actually they're going to pull this Gold Fury, and there's not really much in response, but Hachiman's here, and it's only half HP.
So maybe the not much could turn into a good bit as Gold Fury has been let go, and Zenico is almost joining the Gold Fury in terms of health. Almost dead. Had to get out of there, World Serpent. And Cheeto got poked out by Storming Shadows when they ran into each other, which has completely pushed Kinkai's off of the Gold Fury, and now has an opening for LWUB, and they're starting up the Oni Fury. And with defense being played by Apple Toast, it's decent. Now we see Cheeto in the sky looking for a landing mark, but he lands down, but there was somebody low. Maybe didn't want to be aggressive with the low mana, and there's minions hanging out too. All of it adds up to an LWUB Oni Fury. Not the cleanest, but I mean, they'll certainly take it. Beacon also on the table and currently being looked at and pulled. So Kinkai is going to rush right over to the beacon to try to catch it out, and they're going to have the beacon advantage. Not too much of a contest coming out from LWUB.
Yeah, directly opposite to what we saw with that first Gold Fury in that first beacon. It's now swung in the complete opposite direction. LWUB have secured the Gold Fury. Kinkais have taken the beacon. It's a consolation prize, but they needed to get something off that. Again, that all starts with forcing Zenico out. That's the first time we've seen this Yorm really put under pressure. That's not too surprising with the build that he's gone and the general lack of mobility you have. Very easy target to prey on, but a dash in, they're not going to give up this Pyromancer for free, and the health bars are dropping mostly for the Kinkais here.
So they're giving a lot of health for just a Pyro, not even a contest, just kind of peeking at it. And LWUB not going to take advantage quite yet. They're still holding aggressive grounding, but they're not really committing to anything quite yet, which is probably good for Kinkais, because I don't know if you take any fights here, considering where everybody's at. I think you just let everybody go back and farm. We've been fighting for quite a while, but Strife finds the Ganesh. No opening still for Kinkais.
And look at that poke coming out in the Tiger form. Actually, this is going to do a lot of damage. Dueling
They
Dragons.
found the opening. Dharmic Pillars will clean it up. The credit will go to Asta. And now Zenico in trouble too. Forced into World Serpent to escape. How many times have I said that this game? It feels like 100. Zenico cannot play aggressive so far.
Asta?
LWUB still hanging out in the jungle, but Asta's in trouble and got caught by Blades. Now Anvil of Dawn gonna chase him out on the landing, but he sidesteps it just in time. Now the silence keeps the Thor from chasing further, and Unchained was already used, but the wall couldn't reach.
Fabulous.
So LWUB get the Pyromancer, and Asta somehow manages to escape.
Yeah, somehow, because that seemed ridiculously deep that Asta was going at the enemy speed buff. And you just shouldn't get away with that. Now, it does cost Asta the beads and the blink. Is that a worthwhile trade, though? Because you've also lost the Pyromancer whilst you were chasing down this very mobile Fenrir. So, at the end of the day, you're going, yeah, that's totally worth it. I've used my relics, but they've used ultimates, and I've gotten away, and we've secured a Pyromancer again. It's just these little things start to add up when they've got two objectives in a row now. And as I say, the gold lead is going to start to build just a little bit more in their favour. And I do think the later this goes, the less effective this Jormungandr is going to be, because Yorm isn't going to be killing anyone outright with this style of build. You're also not going to be the tankiest, because again, you're a very still target, and Ganesh can very easily lock you down as long as there's some shred coming through. And that's the other thing to point out. Zarya is shredding people right now. Got plenty of stacks on the tablet, got the Karen's coin online, will likely be going into a Divine Ruin or possibly a Deso. Does need a bit of cooldown reduction, so I don't mind what Zarya chooses to go here. But possibly you need that Divine Rune for this Umoja, because that is one thing you will say that the Kinkais have that LWUB don't, is the sustain coming out from this Umoja. And at the moment, there's actually not a lot of anti-heal at all, just the Pestilence, but the ult's been forced.
Mounted Archery is forced, and the escape from Storming Shadows is out, but Blades of Retribution was able to catch Storming. Eagle Eye was not as lucky.
Wow.
He's able to get away, which is very surprising there. We'll see if Kinkais force a fight or if LWUB go in. We see a Frenzy come out, and we see somebody being focused, and that somebody is Umoja, but just a bit too tanky for LWUB to focus out and want to completely commit on. So we're going to have a stalemate in the mid lane, but with everybody here and how aggressive they've been playing, I wouldn't be surprised if something breaks out of nowhere.
I think they've accidentally queued a game of Assault here, because there's not really to fight over, just mid-tier 1 towers, I suppose, and I'm not really sure who it favours. Again, the sustain coming through is pretty potent, but Garrett has stepped up. He's the only one with anti-heal, and actually, that little bit of aggression, and it probably wasn't going to lead to anything, right? Garrett just sort of stepped up, tanked a couple of shots, knew he was capable of doing so. And you start thinking, oh, they're stepping up. They're probably going to get aggressive. They're probably going to die for it. And actually, that's all they needed to just make that little bit of room just to take that tower. And I love that. They know they don't need to get any more, but it's just a little bit more gold in the coffers from that one little step up. And that's all you have to do, because you know you're not really risking anything, because you're almost getting in their heads when you do that. And I'm really a fan of how LWUB are playing the map. But speaking of which, Kinkais with this pull, they've not been too bad either.
Thor goes up into the sky with Anvil of Dawn on the defense of the Gold Fury, which is down to half health. On the landing, doesn't quite find anybody. LWUB still positioned aggressively, and that's enough for Kinkais to let the Gold Fury go. don't want to commit to another fight, it seems, with that Tiger coming out again. LWUB was certainly ready, but this time, Kinkai's not going to get caught out. And we're at 24
Oh, there it
minutes, and
is.
Huku
There
just
it
got
is.
deleted.
Wow.
Oh boy, goodbye to the emoji. That is who Kinkai's has been relying on. Those Rivers Rebukes have been the main centerpiece for Kinkai's in every team fight that we've seen. So now LWUB knows that, taking advantage, heading right to the Gold Fury and starting it up. It's already down to half health. Zeneco's there to contest, but we've seen him be blown up so many times. Will it be the same again? Thor currently the one getting blown up by Asta. The escape begins for Cheeto, and without the Thor, I don't like this fight for Kinkai's, and they don't either. So at 24 minutes, Gold Fury goes to LWUB. Remember how I was talking about the gold lead and how close it was for what felt like the entire game? Well, that has now gone to a 4K gold lead, favoring LWUB at 25 minutes.
And that is 3 objectives, probably 4 objectives now in a row. That's spiraled this lead massively out of control. There is a puddle there, but it's not going to get a sneaky kill from that tick damage. Yeah, LWUB thoroughly in control. And again, that starts with Kinkai's stepping up aggressively. They pulled the Gold Fury, but I think they played their hand a little bit too early. It's fine to try and bait people in with a Gold Fury pull, which you know is not going to be free. You know it's very much a 50-50 call. So you know it's got to be a bait. But the fact is they use the Thor ultimate really early. It's in plain sight of everyone, and nothing comes of that Anvil of Dawn. And for me, that's where this is really going wrong. They're not playing around the Anvil of Dawns correctly for me, because I think they need Cheeto needs to wait a little bit longer, get Zeneco to do a bit more work in the backline, let Brex do a little bit more poke with this Discordia. Then you're channeling that Anvil of Dawn. Then you're trying to get into the backline to just get relics. That needs to be a little bit of adjustment for me. That's what I'd like to see. And then, of course, they get the Emoja. It's a free Gold Fury. The zoning is fantastic again from Appletoes, who has had a fairly quiet game on the Sun Wukong, but that's kind of Sun Wukong's thing. Sun Wukong is just there and annoying and will heal a bit and do a bit of damage and pretty tanky, pretty mobile. It's just annoying, and you can't really ignore him, but you can't really deal with him either. So I like what they're doing. I like the way they're playing this sort of back to front, front to back style, if that makes sense. It's just so clean from them, and the way they're taking these objectives, stripping them off the map one by one, continuously making sure that there's always something to be taken from them. And that's resulted in this gold lead, as you said, spiraling bigger and bigger and bigger. And if they're not careful, if Kinkai's don't control this descent soon, they might be too far behind to actually deal with any of this when it comes to this Fire Giant pull.
One thing you asked for was a coordinated dive, and as you've been talking about, I think it's clear that that hasn't been there. The pressure versus comfort, it looks like comfort's been winning out over pressure, but something's got to give eventually, or Kinkai's will be just too pressured out. Ragnarok going to bring the Emoja on back. Now Cheeto in the sky on a landing, but not going to be able to find anyone because of Celestial Flight. So Kinkai's has to back up. And LWUB going to be caught out from the apple, and the damage is really good. Going to force everybody to back up.
Surely.
And Kinkai's is able to dive in, and Zeneco can finally use that ultimate aggressive. Berserker going to help Cheeto pick up the kill onto Garrett, and Kinkai's create an opening out of nothing, seemingly. Zeneco dives all the way back, but could pay for it, will not pay for it. Going to be plenty safe, and Kinkai's just brute force their way to a tier 2 tower.
That's an unbelievable example of how execution-based this LWUB comp is. That was one of the few times that we saw Fenrir not really hit a good enough target, and actually, wow, that Phoenix is very nearly low, but yeah, they went for the same target, they went for the Emoja, but this time the follow-up wasn't there, and I think they saw the Anvil of Dawn being channeled, and actually the backline was like, no, we got to get out of here, so there's no follow-up. Speaking of follow-up, massive damage, and shut down Cheeto once again, destroyed by this Fenrir ult. They need to respect that Ragnarok ult, because every fight that's gone well for them has started with Asta the Pasta getting a good pull onto a primary target. They've got to watch out for that.
Cheeto was just completely caught out. And I mean, at 28 minutes, you can't afford to have that happen, because look what it's opened up. The Sun Wukong is diving the Phoenix, but actually Appletoe is going to pay for that. I mean, my goodness.
Hello?
I'm going to need some detailed analysis from you on that one in a moment, but it's going to have to wait because everybody else from LWUB is still getting chased out. Storming Shadows in a lot of trouble here. I don't know if there's an escape possible, and there certainly is not. That's now 2 big picks LWUB gave up after they got a good pick taking out Cheeto, which should have opened up a lot of doors. Instead, it opened up a dive from Apple Toast. And I mean, with a build that is not exactly the most conventional, diving like that combination is iffy to me.
Well, the detailed analysis you were after is that that was a terrible idea, and Apple Toast won't do it again. But now it's opened the door for Fire Giant on the... Thank you. It's opened Fire Giant the other way, and actually we thought they killed Cheeto, they can pull Fire Giant, but it's gone the other way at the moment.
And Voltan gonna hit 2!
Massive.
All he needed was some setup, and that's going to force everybody in LWUB to back up. The Fenrir is the big one for now. Asta going to get chased out and cannot fully commit. The backline fight hasn't turned into too much. It's more been forcing LWUB away. Fire Giant was picked up and dropped during all that, and now Zenico still diving deep with the help of Cheeto, but they're both paying for it, and Dark Pillars keeps them from diving any further. So now the retreat begins from Kinkais, maybe overplaying their hand, and LWUB know it, and they want to take advantage. Now you can see who's pressing W, and it's the red side. They're going to chase down and find what they can get. Could be Brex dueling Dragons, not able to break through the 2 and hit them both, and the Fire Giant almost aided there and Garrett. Apple Toast going to look to see if he can find a way into the back line. Will not, but Tatri and company will get picked up. Double kill for Asta the Pasta. Could be a triple kill if he finds the Brutalize and he gets it. That's huge for LWUB. Asta the Pasta breaking it open, and now they're going to head to the solo lane where it's a 2v1 and Storming Shadows is taking on the world. Needs some kind of backup, but the Tiger not going to hit. Asta still lurking, lands on to Zenico. Brutalize comes out. They're going to chase underneath the tower with Ragnarok, he's going to pull back the Yamoja. I don't think that Yamoja is going to last very long, but the stun was good, but it's a delayed quadra kill for Asta the Pasta. Meanwhile, Mid Phoenix gets picked up by the split pushing Yu Wong. Everything is leaning LWUB. Kinkais fall apart at the Fire Giant.
Swings and roundabouts. We were just saying, well, the Kinkais off that big mistake at Mid Phoenix, maybe they've got a way back into this. They started pulling Fire Giant, but we've seen it before. We've seen it at the previous Gold Furies. They pull the objective, but they show their card out their hand way too early. And in the end, they've used so much. They try and kill Fenrir, whose Ragnarok earlier in the fight was perfect to immune the Amble of Dawn stun. Asta's always going to get out of there, and all that results in a really split fight. They chase too far, and in the end, the health bars get too low. It's a great dueling dragons. We have to remember that. That was a phenomenal ultimate from Zoriat, and then Asta is able to actually come back from base and cleans up what is, as you said, a delayed quadra kill, just cleaning up the backline, because again, it just felt like Kinkais overstayed just that little bit too long. They're getting windows of opportunity, and then they're pushing them much too far, whereas actually they need to just get little wins and then back off and take something else. That's what they need to do. They need to slow the game down a little bit, because at the pace they're going, LWUB are just going to keep rolling through them at this rate. And frankly, it's pretty frightening to watch Asta wrecking in the backline with Zoriat doing tons of work as well. I've been really impressed by this Yu Huang. Lots to like from LWUB. They need to actually get a Fire Giant, and certainly it will not be free, but we'll see how the zoning goes. We'll see when they choose to press the button to just go aggressive and take the fight.
Everything you've called for has come true. You wanted coordination on the dive. That was what you were looking for. You were looking for the Yu Huang ultimates to be on point. You were talking about pressure versus comfort. Everything's clicking, and everything has played out the way we expected. The one thing Kinkais couldn't expect was how much this Fenrir was going to do. I mean, we talked about the Fenrir the least in bans, and look what it's opened up. But Kinkais actually managing to open up a new window of opportunity. They're going to get one pick at the start, but Zenico incredibly poked out and couldn't even get the World Serpent off before that Fenrir comes through again. So it's a 1-for-1 trade support for solo, and Fenrir is not done, but Ragnarok not going to be able to pull in the Emoja, just going to use it to retreat after not pulling anybody in. But with Zenico gone, that has been the initiation from Kinkais is clear as day. It's Zenico goes in and opens up for Cheeto. Cheeto slams down whatever happens after is whatever happens after. With Zeniko down, I mean, Garrett being down is obviously a big deal, but if there's a fight before they respawn, which looks possible, I don't like the odds, and there was a fight, and there is no longer a Discordia. Another kill, 11 now for Asta the Pasta. Storming Shadows will pick up his second. So LWUB just picking them off one at a time in the jungle.
Really, really odd decision making, actually, from both teams, because remember, LWUB wanted to pull that Fire Giant. They were a bit slow on whether they were dropping it, but in the end, it's a 1-for-1. I think Garrett just got a little bit split up. They're a bit, you know, there are cracks there. They didn't play that as perfectly as they've played most of the rest of this game. So there's hope for the King Kais yet, but then they just get picked off by Asta. They're not grouping effectively, because if you're grouped, Fenrir just can't do anything, because Fenrir will just die too quickly. So they need to group properly. Maybe warding will help a little bit more as well. But now again, 2 picks off the board, that opens the door for this Fire Giant once again.
Coming up in 35 minutes, and Kinkais are looking for anything possible right now to pull through. Fire Giant is down below half health, and LWUB just look like they cannot be stopped. The Emoja is close with has River's Rebuke, but it was just out of range of the Fire Giant. Dark Pillars is on the Fire Giant, but Kinkais get the steal of the Fire Giant! Storming Shadows will get 1 in response and make him pay, but they lose the Fire Giant. Like you said, they were taking so long, they took too long.
I think that River's Rebuke kind of threw them off a little bit. That's super worth, I think. Getting off them. You lose Cheeto, but he's done his job. Can they hold off on the defense? It's a great strike. That will really help them here.
They've got health for it, and LWUB will be able to steal a Phoenix on the way out, but look at how low they are. Apple of Discord gonna blow up Garrett. It's a double kill for Brex. Could be even more if they want to chase it out. Yamoja is nowhere to be found, dealing with Fenrir on the duo side of the map. If Kinkais had that, they could get so much off of this, but the Yamoja cannot escape from the Fenrir. So,
no.
I mean, that is unfortunate for Kinkais. The Fenrir is going to let the Emoja go, however. I mean, probably a good call, but you could have chased the Emoja as long as you wanted. I mean, that is a kill. It was just a matter of time. But with Kinkais now using the Fire Giant, using those kills to push up the solo lane, LWUB has to respond.
Yeah, I do think LWUB did well to get a Phoenix. They need to make sure that base is open for them. Should they ever get another, DSR get a big team fight win again, they need to make sure the base is open. So they've done that. It cost them a lot, though, and they were against an enhanced Fire Giant. They're doing absolute work. And as I say, Brex, we haven't really talked about the Discordia much, but Brex got a massive strife, got the beads early off of Zoriat, and then a great Apple of Discord spread, I think, to 2 people. That was the real turning point of that fight. So great credit must go to Brex. And you just knew that from that, as soon as they got that enhanced Fire Giant, they stole a little bit of momentum away from LWUB, and that's kind of the theme that's going on here now. It feels like they're just stealing it back little by little, just clawing their way back into this game, and now they're actually posturing rather aggressively around this Gold Fury. Again, not too much of a contest at 37 minutes. You're not too worried about this Gold Fury, but actually they are quite worried. They're stepping up for it.
Dark Pillars get dropped. Cheeto in the sky. Kinkais get the Primal Fury. What's going to come after? It's late. These fights matter, but Cheeto lands in between 2, and now Cheeto's caught out and in trouble. The rest of LWUB is chasing out, and Storming Shadows will find that kill onto Cheeto, who landed between everybody. Going to pay for the sins of a missed ultimate, and LWUB take out the jungler once again from Kinkais. Just so many doors have been opened by getting rid of that jungler time and time again. It's not a good look.
No, these Anvil of Dawns haven't really been on the mark, it has to be said, and a fantastic use of the Dragonflight, cancelled it early to get the knock-up. Zoriat, that was fabulous, and that meant there was no way out for Cheeto. Will they lose any more, though? It's a left-handed Phoenix is the target, and actually they are going to back off. There's still an enhanced Fire Giant and a pretty good siege defense with the Jormungandr, with the ranged autos coming out from Ishtar, and the Discordia as well. They've got a very good defense, and I think this is going to be a tough nut to crack, and I think they might have to back off here. So despite killing Cheeto, who didn't have enhanced Fire Giant, it's worth pointing out, they did King Kai's did secure the Primal Fury. So in the end, all you've done is lose Cheeto, and you've gained a Primal Fury, and you haven't really lost anything in return. So I suppose you could say that's not a bad trade. And now, that might not always be the case, and Cheeto does need to start hitting these Anvil of Dawn, certainly, and needs to be getting onto a target. But, you know, for the last couple of deaths, I think they've been really worth it for Cheeto, and all credit for Cheeto and the rest of the King Kais for sort of playing around that, because this is how you get back into it. You need to take your little wins as best you can and drag them out for as long as you can, because again, the longer this game goes, we are pretty much even on terms of item builds. Levels are certainly everyone's 20. You're not worried about that. This is almost an even game, dare I say it. That right Phoenix is about to respawn. If you can clear those fire minions, this Fire Giant is going to be a straight up 50-50 fight, and it's going to be about who executes better. This is an even game.
Even as even can be. And the gold lead never really got crazy after we talked about that 4K. And it's 12-19, and anything can be the difference at this point.
Wow.
I'm looking for anything crazy. I'm looking for health bars like that to drop. And here comes the aggression from Asta. But for once, they were ready, and the wall was perfect. So Tadtree will get the credit. Now Anvil's on lands, and he got a hit. And look what it's creating. Kinkais has forced it open. They've got a double for Cheeto, and they just completely caught LWUB sweeping. All they needed to do was take out Asta, and Cheeto found... Hey, you only got to hit the big ones, right?
Absolutely. Everyone will remember that one ult, but you hit the other 20 you've missed, and now it's going to be on some kind of crazy steal from Apple Toast or Storming Shadows. It looks pretty unlikely, but they are in position. Surely not. Surely not.
They're letting Appletoast get very close. Somersault Cloud has already come out, but he's got to use it to escape. Kinkais get the EFG. It was very, very, very close there. LWUB now has to play defense, and they've got about 15 seconds before any reinforcements begin to arrive. Kinkais know that. They're pushing up. They've cleared all their Phoenixes back up, so they've got help. Cheeto going up in the sky. Will lightning strike twice on the landing? He just needs to get some hits. He's got it lined up. He's going to get a hit. And look, it happened again. They're both dead. All it took was Cheeto to hit the ultimate, and Kinkais is running into the throne room. They're going to use Ragnarok to try to pull somebody back, but they couldn't get it. The Titan's at half health, but Kinkais is second-guessing the call. It's at a quarter health, but they backed up. That's 2 down already for Kinkais. LWUB gets a third down. They're defending the Titan. Kinkais hesitated, and it was their downfall. They lose 4 members, and LWUB stay in the game.
I think that's game now. I think LWUB is going to walk up and take this. Do they have the damage? You've got respawn timers. You've got about 45 seconds on Tadtree. And they'll certainly get a Phoenix. Can they end the game? Maybe I was a bit soon on that, but I can't believe that they did so well to get that. The problem is they were half committed, as you said. It looked like some of the members of King Kai's were backing off. They thought, no, we can't end here. Zoriat was just respawning. Asta had just spawned, and then some of them were going in and all in committing. And the problem is you have to do. Everyone has to be on the same page with that kind of call. Now, this is a decent defense, and the damage is not great, but the Hydra's going to help. But Zeneco's doing a pretty good job of defending this. Even if he loses this is only a mid-Phoenix. You'd much rather keep your right-hand side Phoenix up. I wonder if Zeneco will notice that. This is all right. This is okay. They've not lost too much here.
He's actually chasing them out of the base, not just defending. I mean, EFG Yorm. Dang, okay. I respect it. This game has blown into complete chaos at 42 minutes. I mean, at 38, we were talking about how it felt like the end was near, and for Kinkais then, it switched to LWUB. They hesitate on the end, and now we're back to, I mean, I wouldn't say even, because the Titan of LWUB is not looking great right now. And Kinkais know that. They're going to get this Oni Fury and probably push up with the Oni waves, and if you're LWUB, I mean, you know what they're going to do.
Yeah, you have to be ready for that. You have to make sure that these fire waves are properly pushed. What's helpful is that it's on the side of Fire Giant. That's going to make it much easier to defend. That means you'll be able to step up and contest next Enhanced Fire Giant. So certainly, Kinkais will not have a free Enhanced Fire Giant. They also have to deal with minions in mid lane, because they did lose that mid-hand Phoenix. They kept their right one up, though, and I think that's arguably more important at this stage. I would always take a side Phoenix over the mid one, but again, it's so hard to call which way this is going to go because both teams have at times felt like they were in control of the match, and then a crazy play will happen, or some little mistake will be capitalized on, will be punished, and then suddenly it will swing back the other way. At the moment, yes, King Kai's have done a lot of damage to the LWUB's Titan, and that is the big concern if you're LWUB. You have to keep an eye on that. There is always the possibility of the backdoor, and certainly you can see with the wards that they've got out around that speed buff, they are prepared. They are ready for any backdoor attempt. So I don't think that's going to work, and it looks like King Kai's, they're going to play it a little bit slow. They're going to maybe look to maybe clean up the rest of the map. I think there's a tower in left that they can still clean up, so that's fine. They're going to play it slowly, wait for their enhanced Fire Giant to run out, and make sure you get positioning and aggressive wards in and around the jungle just as Enhanced Fire Giant is spawning. Because really, they should have that little bit of map pressure over LWUB at that stage.
The tier 2 falls in the dual lane. Only Phoenix is left to defend for both teams. Mid Phoenix down for Kinkai's. Solo lane Phoenix down, but not for much longer for LWUB. EFG around the corner. 45 minutes is coming up. It's 17 to 23. It's this game. It's become a story of junglers too.
Yes.
Because we harped on Cheeto so much for those ultimates, but Cheeto hit 2 ultimates and Kinkai's almost won the game.
Yeah,
from 2 ultimates.
And I think the key was they managed to kill Zoriat. They managed to get the first kill onto this Yu Huang, and who's been so impactful, I think, and certainly top of the damage charts. So that's no surprise to see. The Dueling Dragons have been fantastic, but you saw as soon as they were able to get the kill onto the Yu Huang, they nearly won the game off it. Like that. That's how significant that one kill, more than anyone else, that one kill will matter so much. If Cheeto can do it once more, I do think that will be a game ender. But yeah, you're absolutely right, and I have to say it's been a game. It hasn't felt like it. It's felt really fast paced and fun actually. So I'm loving it so far. We're at the Fire Giant dance now. It is enhanced, of course. You've got a couple more waves of fire minions to deal with in the mid lane, but you're not super concerned about that. That Phoenix is spawning soon. I guess LWUB would like to push up a bit and make the most of that map pressure they have, but for all intents and purposes, we are once again at a fairly even Enhanced Fire Giant dance, and I don't want to call which way it's going to go.
I wouldn't either, certainly. Lower division, but higher division drama.
Absolutely.
And Kinkai's at this point, they've got the Fire Giant pit under control. LWUB certainly could pounce at any moment. We've seen it time and time again from them. There will need to be at least one response to a fire wave from Kinkai's, as we can see in the mid lane. And maybe LWUB will look for an opening, but right now the dance is still on strong. Zenico in deep, however, could be in trouble. Actually getting aggressive with it and getting dropped really quick. And Zenico gonna get picked up here.
Whoa!
No, World Serpent gets used right before he stepped into the Dharmic Pillars. So Zenico lives on a fraction of HP.
And that is the reason you build Aegis on the Jormungandr. That was absolutely a ton of damage was soaked up by that Aegis amulet. Going to teleport right back in. Look how much they've used on Zenico, and Zenico's back with full HP.
Now Apple Toast has to back, but Apple Toast gets caught by Cheeto. Zenico finds his own kill. That's 2 down, including the ADC of LWUB. Kinkai's have a new opening. They didn't even need to use the Fire Giant pit. They just got picks around it. And one of them came from Zenico having to leave. Absurd play from Kinkai's here to make it a 5v3 for over 50 seconds, and they're going to go to the EFG. They've got 2 on defense. Cheeto and Zenico both playing the defensive route, but Zenico gets picked up and caught out from the Yu Huang. Now Zoriat looking at the EFG pit. Fire Giant's below half health, and they're going to give it up. So far, Fire Giant going to reset. LWUB, Kinkai's finding ways to match each other even when you don't expect it. The damage from that Yu Huang is just so tremendous. Yeah,
not particularly tanky, even with the fully stacked build, basically. You don't have as many prots as normal. Kaiser still attempt on the Pyromancer. I don't mind that. It's a low cooldown for Garrett, and has plenty of CDI in the build as well. 30%, I think, plus some power pot. So I don't mind that. But yes, it all comes off of, I think, Zenico overstaying a little bit once again. We've used that term before this game, overstaying. I think it was a bit of a risky pull, and I don't think you can really afford to do that when you don't have the best vision in the world, and you need to keep an eye on this U1 because it's just too much of a threat. So I'm not a big fan of the pull. Again, if they go for the bait and they're all on the same page for that, it's fine. But what it means is that it ends up being a 1-for-1, and we're back to square one once again. Oh!
Tatri
Hey?
and company find a pick on Apple Toast, and look at the respawn timer. 75 seconds of no Apple Toast for LWUB to play around. I was just going to say, last time when Kinkais got all those picks, I would have liked to see them play off of the picks and maybe not even just the EFG, because we're so late with 3K pots online. I mean, EFG is always valuable, but at a certain point when you're getting all those picks, go for it. And now that they've got a pick on Apple Toast, I think I want to see the same thing. I mean, play for the EFG, certainly, that's the main goal, but take advantage of the no solo lane for LWUB, especially with how aggressive Apple Toast has been playing.
Yeah, and what this is exactly what they need to do. They need to have Yamoja and they need to have Tatri on this Ishtar. Those two need to be on EFG and just sustaining through with that Yamoja healing. Everyone else needs to be looking for a pick. Hide behind a wall, drop sentry ward down, and look for a pick onto anyone. Because as you say, the respawn times are nearly 80 seconds at this late stage of the game. Picks are, as you say, almost more valuable. But the dilemma, of course, for LWUB is a support and an ADC will eventually kill EFG on their own. Actually, that's exactly what they're doing. Look, I'm psychic. They're doing it now. They need to take the...
Dark Pillars and Ragnarok both use Cheeto on the chase, but Cheeto goes wide left, but still aggressing on top of Yu Huang. Both relics have been used, now Celestial Flight, and they're enough to get Zoriat away, so Yu Huang still in the fight, still dangerous.
Ooh,
it looks like Kinkais is abandoning the idea of the Fire Giant. They want the fight, and Zeniko's in deep, but Zeniko gets caught out. Cheeto does find the kill onto Zoriat. Zeniko still diving deep. Zeniko could get dropped, does manage to get away, so it's going to turn into just one pick. Despite how much was used, the health bars are low for LWUB, but they're able to back. And I don't know if Kinkais will have enough time to do this EFG without contest. And I'm scared about doing it in the face of LWUB.
Yeah, they need to be careful. The key is don't lose too much health. Don't use too many cooldowns on this Fire Giant, because you know they're going to straight back in. But speaking of which, Zeniko has TP'd straight back in from no health to full health. Is doing a good job of zoning with Cheeto.
Perfect defense.
This might be, this has gone down. That's perfectly played, as you said. Everyone was doing their jobs properly there. Fabulous to see. I just love what I'm seeing. Now they are fully in control. They've got Enhanced Fire Giant. Zoriat is not up for another 30 seconds. They need to push with this wave if they can. They need to get a Phoenix down before he spawns.
Like Zat said, with Zoriat down, it's got to be go button. You're not going to have a better opportunity for a while, but it's already down to 15 seconds, and they still haven't stepped up to a Phoenix, even with EFG and how tanky the team is. So Kinkais going to wait out their time. They will have Zoriat to deal with onto the Phoenix Siege. They just didn't feel comfortable stepping in. And LWUB able to respond and able to pick up and drop Cheeto, and that's no jungler for a long time.
Again.
Left Phoenix getting taken. The response from LWUB is to go aggressive, and they've chased everybody out. Brex is in a different zip code for the fight, and Tatri is going to find one pick so far, and that was on to Garrett, so no more Ganesh, no more silences, and the Phoenix is still up for LWUB. So Kinkais has to go aggressive again. They step in, they're able to get it, but Fenrir dives in the back line and finds a 4-man stun, but there's no response from LWUB as everybody gets backed up. So now Storming and Asta take on the world, and Asta just had to retreat. They've gotten everybody low on Kinkais, but they haven't gotten more picks since Cheeto. So the boys in blue, a bit safer for the time being.
Such fine margins. I don't know how Cheetah gets caught there. Doesn't available. Gotta be wary of what Asta's gonna do. Gets dragged onto Phoenix and that. But again, they still were able to push in. They got the Phoenix. That's the really important thing. That's the most important thing. And they got the left-hand side Phoenix. It's the furthest away from Fire Giant. That will set them up if there is another enhanced Fire Giant. And we may not get that far, but it's such fine margins because Asta, having already got the pick in mid lane, came back, got triple stun, got beads, got Aegis, and got Shell, I believe, off of one 3-man stun. It was ridiculous and managed to escape as well. That will be important, but I do think it's like you said, Kinkais were a bit too slow there. I think they gave too much respect to LWUB, and You know, that is the state of the game. It's been a very long one, and it's been back and forth. You are rightfully thinking, well, we've got to be a bit cautious because we know LWUB can turn this at the swing of a hat. But I do think they gave a little bit too much respect there. They should have been a little bit quicker, had an eye on that respawn timer. And in the end, I do think it cost them a little bit, but they did get what they came for. They probably won't get much else off this EFG. I would hazard a guess, but I do think the defense will be strong enough for LWUB. But either way, this is going to be a game-ending fight. Surely this time it won't be a one trade.
Surely, right? LWUB going to try to pick off Zenico. They got the silence off, but couldn't get more. They had to respond to the solo lane. Zoriat got good damage across onto Emoja, but River's Rebuke comes out, and I like Kinkai's chances. They're playing this fairly well. They're being safe outside the Phoenix, but LWUB has plenty of room to dive in and do what they got to do. Dark Pillars come out, and they've got him low, but Tatri's got him lower. Garrett hits the grayscale. Cheeto on the landing, not going to find a home, but he's still in deep. Has to get out now.
Phoenix.
Double tap used for an escape, and they've got the solo lane Phoenix. Looks like Kinkai's might call it there. They're going to look at the mid Phoenix, but LWUB could be way better postured for a defense of the mid Phoenix and the solo Phoenix.
Yeah, health bars are just too low, particularly on Emoja. The poke crazy. And there is some healing response. Help them out in the line. Hits done. Doesn't find the target, but both relics used by Tatri. Mid Phoenix goes, so now they've completely broken the base. Titan is exposed just in time. As this EFG runs out, they will be in prime position for the next one to spawn. It's a big ask now for LWUB to come back from what is a really, really difficult spot.
All right. 55 minutes, 23 to 25. Remember when the kills were lopsided? How long ago that was? I'm not gold.
Crazy.
Who cares? It's a lot of 3K bots. If you want to know where gold's at, everybody can get 3K bots. Everybody's had one at this point. Pockets are full of wards. Everything's upgraded. You've got everything you could possibly want. LWUB has no Phoenixes remaining. Kinkais has the best opportunity they've had, and not even the first time I've said that. What do you do from here if you're Kinkais? How do you not fumble having the 3 Phoenixes down?
I kind of think with the picks they've been getting, you need to be a little bit almost. I think you need to be less respectful. You need to push your lead more, and it's hard to say of leads at this stage. Whoa,
oh, no. Can't afford this. Cheeto gonna look for Zoriat. Might find it. Aegis used. He gets the pickoff. Zoriat's gone, but Storming Shadows in response able to drop Cheeto. So 84 seconds across the board.
1 for 1.
A 1-for-1 there was not what we were expecting, certainly. No. LWUB positioning kind of aggressive here. River's Rebuke in response to the aggression. Kinkais could have a new way in, and they find their new way in. No. They get rid of Apple Toast with the help of Tatri. Now they're going to dive in and follow Zenico all the way. That's another member gone. Down to 2 for the defense, and Zenico is still diving deep. Storming Shadow is barely alive, and Zenico will chase him all the way, but more importantly, it's the Titan! It's gonna drop! Game 1 goes to Kinkais!
Wow. What a barn burner. 56, 57 minutes. And shout out to Zoriat for still not having the fully upgraded beads at 56 minutes.
I respect that.
That's absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, you know what? Maybe that was the difference, honestly. But Kinkais take the game. Phenomenal stuff. A fantastic game to watch. I don't know what to say. I'm supposed to be analyzing this stuff. I just can't. The LWUB, I just think it felt for me, right? Like LWUB still thought they were in the lead, even though they just didn't have the position to ever step up there. But the other problem for them is they know they've got 3 Phoenixes down. You have to take a fight somewhere, and I guess that really was a sort of Hail Mary play, last chance saloon. They had to try and get something, and in the end, it was just a bit too much of an ask for them. And that is actually credit to Kinkais for playing it slow, for getting every objective off the map. It puts you in a practically winning position that all you need is one little mistake to punish, and then you can win the game off it. So very well played by the Kinkais.
I can't believe it, but there's still a game 2 around the corner. So before we head into it, Zats, walk me through these post-game stats. I mean, obviously the big one sticking out of me is 66,000 player damage from Zoriat, but also Zeniko hit 53, 52 for Tatri. Breik's not far behind that, and of course the 14 kills from the Fenrir.
Yeah, the thing about those 14 kills is a lot of them in the first 20 minutes of the game, and that's fine. That's Asta's job. Like, Fenrir can run the early game from the jungle. That's absolutely fine. I did feel they were a little bit lacking come late game. You know, Asta was still doing a lot, getting those big stuns, getting those ultimates on 50% of the time. I was happy with that. I think Garrett was doing okay. There were some good Dharmic pillars. I do think Apple Toast was a little bit quiet, and that's kind of tough to say when you've got a Sun Wukong. You need to be disrupting the backline just that little bit more. But it's hard to complain because I do think the backline is safe. But it is a lot of the damage numbers that have come out from the King Kais. It's no surprise really, because Zeniko, that's what Jormungandr does. That's why they top picked it. You can build 2, 3, 4 damage items, and you've always got the World Serpent and the Aegis to get out of it. So it's not a surprise to me. I actually was almost expecting more from Zoriat with the amount they were swinging, but I think a few adjustments, and I would expect a very, very even game 2. Certainly, I hope it's as exciting as game 1 was.
We won't have to wait long for those adjustments, my friend, as game 2 is around the corner. We'll be right back on GSL. Use this time to go take a break, look yourself in the mirror, and think about what you've done. Before we get to game 2, I have to go switch to a new page of my notebook. We'll be right back on GSL. Hello and welcome back to GSL Semifinals between LWUB and Keen Kais. My name is Anthony Malum. I'm joined by Zats, and we've got Ginger Archer pushing buttons today. And game 2 around the corner. Game 1 was a 56-minute war, Zats.
It was. A war is one way of putting it. A barn burner, and any other expletive you can think of. It was ridiculous to watch. One of the most fun 56-minute games to ever watch, I have to say. It was so back and forth. That was the real pickup for me. Swings and roundabouts all the time. It felt like when one team had momentum, it was taken away from them through a mistake or a big ultimate from someone. And I think everyone had a part to play. Fantastic to watch, and everyone got their little highlight reel, I think. So I love that. That's what I love about Low Division. I'm excited to see how things are going to be adjusted going into this game number 2. I do expect to see a few different bans. I don't think Jormungandr is really worth letting through, and I think you need a better answer than the Sun Wukong. Let's see if these two agree with me.
I'm looking, so we talked about the pressure versus the comfort.
Yeah.
I'm kind of looking for some coordination behind the comfort, and I'm looking for some more strategy behind the pressure.
Yeah, I think that's really fair, actually, because I do think that LWUB had... I've seen all, these players play these picks before. I understand why they want them. They're fairly strong all around, but actually you're right. When it came to driving the backline effectively, it felt like there was Fenrir doing one thing, and then everyone else was kind of on a different page. That's maybe more, I think, to do with Appletoast. I think we're struggling to find the positional play on the Sun Wukong. We're struggling to get into the backline. Don't know if Appletoast had a blink, but if they did, it wasn't being used properly. If they didn't, probably needed that. Just something to help out Aster a little bit more. But ban-wise, it's the same. And obviously, we have swapped around now. LWUB are going to take away that Jormungandr top pick.
I love that. I feel like the way we saw that last game play out, if Appletoast had a more, I want to say, comfortable way of getting in and out of fights, it could have been a bit better. I mean, you can't really get much more comfortable than Sun Wukong. I understand that, but obviously the Ox and Tiger forms were something that were putting Appletoast a bit out of place. Jormungandr, I think, could be a bit more forgiving because you're forced into a certain positioning style, and Kinkai's taking the opposite solo laner right back away and picking up the Sun Wukong.
Yeah, completely switched up the solo lane. I like that. I kind of want to how Zenico does on the Wukong. You're kind of thinking there's a mental win here if I can absolutely style on Appletoast on the pick that he's just played.
For sure.
That's always pretty tough.
Elephant in the room times, that's. The Thor run back for Cheeto.
Yeah. Do you know, the 20 minutes in, I was starting to think about game 2, and I thought, they've got to get rid of the Thor. They've got to ban the Thor. But it did come up big a couple of times. But I kind of think in a nearly 60-minute game, you're gonna hit some Thor ultimates. The problem is that there just weren't enough being hit for me, and I'm still a little bit worried about this Thor. It's not my favorite. I also don't think it's as good in the jungle as it once was. The Nurse Thor received were small. I think pretty insignificant, but I still think Thor's a great pick. Perhaps he's better in solo, but obviously that flex isn't going to happen. I'm still a bit dubious. But again, if it goes 60 minutes or whatever, then some Anvil of Dawns will hit, and that's not a problem for me. So sure. And then 90% of the time, Kinkai's were able to use the kind of, I'm not going to say whiffed ultimates, but they're able to use that and actually win fights off of it sometimes, or at least
I will
take
vanquish all evil from this world.
I don't mind it.
Humbot's getting picked up, but more interestingly to me is the Khepri. Yu Huang is a run back for Zoriat, taken away from Zoriat, so that's a big talking point for us after we talk about the Khepri, because I feel like I haven't seen a Khepri in a long time, Zats.
Yeah, I don't particularly rate the Khepri at the moment. I think there are stronger supports out there. Something like a Kuzumbo has been completely ignored this draft, which that was just the first thing that popped into my head. We've seen that banned a lot, but neither team particularly interested in that pick, which I think is fair enough. the biggest surprise to me is that something like this Umoja wasn't taken. I just think Umoja does so much stuff, right? Her kit is so bloated. She's got healing. She's got, her one stuns towers. Right? Her kit is just ridiculously bloated. And then you've got Khepri, who I think it forces you to play in a very predictable style. And that is that. Well, hang on, we've just got to play around this revive, and once we burn the revive, we just win the fight because Khepri doesn't really do a lot after that. Now he does bring lane pressure, but that's a long way of saying that I'm not a big fan of picking up Khepri. Certainly not this early, anyway. Other supports still on the table.
Everybody's favorite.
Shall we get
Time to
to
type
it
in
then?
chat, enemy ultimate down, just in case they don't know. Shibalanke gets picked up for Kinkais, and I like that for Tatri because positioning-wise, if you looked at where Tatri was that entire game one,
Behold
Shibalanke
my
there,
fury!
very, very valuable, and the ultimates could really help out Cheeto.
That's a very good point, actually. That's a really good point. I think the synergy from would be massive. That will maybe swing the results a little bit more in Cheeto's favor. Maybe now you'll hit closer to 50% of your odds. I'm sorry for slandering Cheeto like that, but I do agree. I do like this Shibalanke pick.
You're dropping percentages.
I'm sorry, Cheeto, but
Mother Earth
yeah,
is
I
here
like
for
the
you.
pick. I do think that when you're being aggressed on, like Storming Shadows was obviously stepping way high up in the first game, so it's no surprise to see the armor as well. I think you're right, Xbox can diffuse all that. You just clear the wave and you throw out an ultimate every now and then and get a free assist, free gold. I kind of like it, and then certainly with the Terror as well, it kind of suggests to me maybe we're not going to fight in this early game. Maybe we're just going to chill a little bit, and I'm okay with that.
So now let's talk about the new elephant in the room that has barged its way in. Is that a Sasano mid? Or your
Oh, wait. Oh, I should have. That's something I probably should have noticed, shouldn't it? Yeah, that's going to be Sasano mid, I bet. We have seen Jormungandr mid before. I do rate the Jormungandr mid. If you think about the build that Zoriat was going, the tablet into the Book of Thoth, into a defense ion, into E-Staff and Soul Reaver, Jormungandr, that's a perfect mid lane build. There's no reason that you can't just build that again. And it's essentially the same build that he had on the U1. So I wouldn't mind that. It does mean you'd have to put Sasano in solo, which is a bit rubbish, especially into the Sun Wukong. There's no nice way of saying that. So I suspect that will be Sasano mid. That feels like I'm just going to go and kill the other mid laner because I think I'm better than them. That's what that pick feels like if it does end up being a Sasano mid. The problem is Yu Huang is so safe. If it was a Thoth, sure, but this Yu Huang, I'm not so sure.
As we head in game, it's time for game number 2. Game 1 was a barn burner, to say the least. Game 2 matters a lot. LWUB is 1 game away from heading to the losers bracket, while Kinkais is 1 game away from a cozy seat in the finals, but it is a best of 3, so chances aren't done yet. Once again, my name's Anthony Malum. I'm joined by Zats. Ginger Archer is production today, and let's get into it. And I asked about laning phase last time. This time, I'm going to ask about where they're going because it is confirmed to be a Sasano mid.
Yeah. Look, you have to be so careful, like pre-level 5, because the damage coming out will be a lot to deal with. And as long as you're cognizant of that, you think, okay, this is Sasano mid, he's got Bluestone, he's got the ability to jump in and pull me. And if he hits level 3, I'm probably going to die. Especially, again, if the pressure they already have from 2 assassins, Zoriat is going to hit 3 first, and you have to be careful of that. But once you get past that, Breck should be able to farm up pretty efficiently. You'll certainly be able to outclear Zoriat. So I actually think it's kind of an odd pick because you're kind of giving Brex a little bit more room. Which, given how game 1 went and how far ahead Zoriat was in that mid lane, I kind of think that's kind of backwards thinking in a way. I think you needed more pressure, not less. But of course, Zoriat can make me eat my words by getting first blood within the next 2 minutes. It'll all be worth it.
Last time it was very early first blood. Caught us both off guard. This time, Terra gets pulled under tower.
That.
The jump in from Storming Shadows. The impale follows.
Ooh,
but he beads, but it was a little late on the stun. So the Terra able to escape for the time being. I don't know. That beads there for me was aggressive, and I like it, but I would have needed it to be a pre-beads, I think.
Yes, full agree. It has to be pre-beads. You know that Terra's only got... Ooh, does catch the dash, but it's not
So
a
much
bullet
respect.
impale into the wall. Wow.
Oh, but the pull from the Khepri, Tatri, very low. They've got a minion wave to help out.
No.
Does the tick hit? No, it does not. But the dual lane of Kinkais has been completely pressured out.
So, yeah, they picked the Xbalanque, they picked Terra, and we were like, yeah, they just won't fight into Khepri on her. And then they end up being stepped up at tower after the first wave. I'm sure you've outcleared them, but you've got to be wary that Arnher can just jump in. Damage coming out onto Apple Toast. Will we see the, what do we call it, a reverse solo kill from Zenico again onto the pick that he was playing last game? That would be just crazy to me, and that cannot be allowed to happen if you're Apple Toast. Here's what we were talking about, the aggression from Zoria in the mid lane, but that is kind of it. That's what the Susano does. Brex knows what's going to happen, knows how much damage that does now, and still have the Dragonfly. And as I say, it's such a safe pick. I'm still yet to be convinced by this Susano, but what I will say is that, of course, Brex is very wary of that and is correctly playing back, but that does give a bit of space to Zoria to actually just clear down with autos and start to rotate and clear this jungle farm, which is actually more important at this stage to get that farm off the map. That will help Zoria maintain what will be a bit of a lead now.
I want to ask you about the team fight potential of LWUB. We talked about it a lot in game 1 for Kinkais, actually. But this game, we've got as you've mentioned, it's pretty significant damage. The dive is crazy. I mean, you've got Fear No Evil. You've got a Susano in your face, dropping every cooldown known to man, including a Typhoon. You have an On Her also trying to get aggressive, maybe jump in, has that pillar up, impaling you around. Then you have a Khepri. Khepri can definitely dive with them, but is the Khepri there for the survival or more so for the offense? World Serpent going to be forced out from Apple Toast after a gank from Cheeto, but I don't think they have a big shot of killing a Yorm this early.
No, you do get the ultimate out, and actually the teleport having already been used.
That's huge.
That's previously coming out. That will give a lot of leeway to Zenico. That's going to be a pretty significant lead off of this, because presumably Aptos is going to have to back soon. But yeah, going back to this Khepri, normally Khepri does struggle a bit in team fights, but actually there's a Fear No Evil.
The Blank Fear No Evil, a combination as old as Smite itself, and it's working out okay so far. And Desert Fury will clean up Tatri. Thirst Blood goes the way of LWUB.
Yeah, just I think got the beads back down for Tatri, but just a little bit too late, unfortunately. Very well timed, I think. If they were on the timers of those beats, that was a fabulous rotation from... Whoa! Bluestone! Bluestone. He's done it. Zenico has done it.
There's that reverse kill that you wanted, you talked about, and it makes us
horrible.
1-1.
That's horrible. And now, Apple Toast, you've been soloed both games on both picks, essentially. Oh, that must feel awful. And you've still got no teleport. You haven't got enough gold to finish Chronos Pendant. It's absolute disaster. Whereas Zenico has picked up the solo kill. TP's back in with a full magical defense item. That's a big concern for me. And I think Asta now has as we said in game number 1, has a choice to make. Do you keep on focusing this duo lane, or do you go and help solo? The difference is in this game, I think solo is going to fall so far behind if you just leave this Yorm alone. I do think you will need to go and get a kill onto Zenico sooner rather than later.
They've got to take the pressure somewhere. That was one thing that we both were really liking about game number 1, was that the pressure in the side lanes was so significant, and it forced really interesting play. Kind of like we're seeing here, Cheeto forced into that Anvil of Dawn to get away. We'll land on the silver buff for safety, and Asta still playing aggressive, actually diving in after and forcing out that double tap too. Cheeto just couldn't escape Asta there. I love the aggression, because I was just saying it. Make that side lane not fun. Just stay there as long as you can. But maybe overstaying a bit now.
Whoa.
Still diving in all the way to the tower.
Whoa.
And he'll find it in the face of Zenico. That cannot feel any worse for Cheeto. And now the blue buff could go with it. This sucks if you're Kinkais. This just sucks.
That's crazy. I mean, the good thing is you've got a kill on... And it is, as we said, that's where the pressure needs to be put. It's not onto the solo lane, but it's on the jungler. That felt like that was a jungle solo kill. Zenico's been completely ignored. It was a bounce, I think, off the blue buff, somehow got onto Cheeto, and Zenico wasn't able to follow. And that meant it was a fantastic pickup from Asta. Just a pure style show of mechanics there. It was fabulous to watch. That's a bit concerning now, but again, you would have to say with the lead that Zenico will inevitably have, I say that, being poked down a lot, this Jormungandr will still slap, but oh no, I don't know about that one.
Ult for ult in the solo lane. This solo lane matchup is a much more interesting laning phase than we saw in game number 1.
Be careful here.
But now, on the landing, Alpha Toast could be in trouble. Zenico, low in mana as well as health, going to use that bird to escape. That solo lane is going to be something to keep an eye out for, because it really is going to matter come late game, the state of those solo laners and what they're able to bring to the table and how they're able to play that front line for their teams.
Yes, full agree. And we saw how effective Zenico was on the Jormungandr, just being able to bait with the Aegis, with the World Serpent, do tons of damage still. And I do expect to see a similar style of build. They are differentiating it slightly, going into the early Gladiator Shield instead. That was one thing that Zenico didn't have in the build last game. And, you know, the item has been nerfed, so I actually don't mind that. I think went a slightly more defensive focus build before going back into all the proccing damage items. So it will be a similar style. How effective can Apatow be on it? Because the problem is you do have a lot of lockdown. I think if you can just get one stun on the Terror, there's the Amulet of Dawn. The beads are actually used.
It was pre-beats that time, and pre-beats helped out. Now at the back end of things, a blink forward from the jungler, Asta the Pasta,
Wow.
and Storming Shadows will help out, and they're going to get rid of Tatri. So the gank response to the gank, very nice from LWUB indeed. We saw the Hoombots banned game 1. I guess we're starting to see why.
Very true, and that's another good thing that the King Kais are doing very well, or the LWUB are doing very well, I should say, is their because Tatri, at some point, we don't know when, we weren't there to see it, but Tatri used the beads and didn't have them for, I think, another 30 seconds when that gank came in. And that's such a basic thing, but there's the beads used and the shell. It might actually save him.
Kefri ultimate as well, but not going to be a dive coming out from Zoriad. So it's going to be an escape for Cheeto. Probably could have looked to dive there, but had no cooldowns. Unfortunate play there for LWUB. They certainly had stuff in mind. And as you can see, gold lead is... The gold lead, as you can see, is heading up really, really high. It's 2,200 right now, favoring LWUB. Experience even higher than that. And experience at this point in the game matters more than the gold to me. And with it skyrocketing the way it is for 10 minutes in the game, that's a good spot for LWUB to be. And it's not like you can look at just the kills, because it's only 3-1.
And when you compare that to game number 1 and what Asta was able to do in the early game, the difference now is that it's a Hoombots, and Hoombots is going to be arguably even more dangerous in a late game team fight. If you can hit multiple people with that Fear No Evil, that's way more effective than a Fenrir can ever be. You can effectively solo a backliner and everyone else, but there's a lot of damage coming out. But again, that World Serpent, the health is low, but just about gonna squirm on out of there at Apple Toast again. Yet more pressure, and again, no teleport up. Once again, there's more lead going to be gained from Zenico at this stage.
That feels bad. That feels really bad when you're a solo in that scenario, having to take that long trek back to Mordor just to get to your solo lane to farm a little bit. I mean, that sucks.
Yeah, and I am actually a bit surprised that Apatow isn't further behind, and I part of that is once again down to the jungler winning that jungle matchup at the moment. Cheeto has had arguably even less impact compared to game number 1. Cheeto was using ults aggressively and getting stuff done in game number 1, but so far I think we've seen a couple. None of them really hit the mark, apart from in that solo lane again. Apatow was able to slither on out of there. I do think part of that is play style, and certainly when you look at Cheeto's build going into the Soul Eater, did this last game, not a big fan of this on the Thor. It just slows you down that much more when, if you're going to stack, just go Transcendence. But, I'm saying it's a slow build up, but certainly not at the moment. There's aggressive in.
Fear No Evil in response to the response, and it's going to work better for Asta the Pasta, and Cheeto going to get dropped for it. It looked like Cheeto had the advantage. I mean, Cheeto was lurking, waiting for Asta to go in. That was a gank favoring Kinkais, but Asta the Pasta able to turn it around with a beautiful Fear No Evil, finding 2 with beads down on Cheeto. Worked out tremendously, and Beacon is not far away. So that's a nice spot to be in if you're LWUB.
Yeah, it's odd to go in when you don't have the beads available. You know what aggression coming out, and they do secure the. So it's a nice little invade, nothing too crazy. And I don't think there'll be any response either. But yeah, it's a bit of an odd decision. I do also think that you don't have a lot of damage online at this stage. You're also not leveling your hammer once again. We noted that Cheeto maxed the 3 in game number 1. That's fine again if you're looking to slow play it and farm up. But what it actually means is when you make that play, when you wall and hammer, it's not going to do nearly as much damage. And actually, the strength of Thor at this stage is that double tap. And if you're able to hit that and do half someone's health, then you can start thinking, well, actually, I don't need to go in because I can just poke them out, or I can go in, I can force a relic much easier. But again, with the leveling order and with this build, Cheeto actually needs to slow the game down. The problem is, being already 2 levels down, you can't really afford to do that anymore. You have to somehow try and keep up and slow down Asta. And really, Cheeto is going to be relying on someone else to do help from your team.
Emerging threat too, Zats, that I'm looking at as you're walking us through that. I mean, 13 minutes in, we've talked a lot about Asta the Pasta. We haven't really talked about ADC. We're Storming Shadows, who's getting 17-man ganked at the moment, it looks like, on the map. Is 2-0, but has that Kinkais, has a level lead against a Griffin Wing. So keep your eye on the on-her. Now keep your eye on the Fear No Evil. But with the lights turned out, much harder to dive in for Asta. So forced to back up and join Storming back in lane. But as we get late, that on-her, that's where my eyes are going.
Yeah, and the problem is on-her kills frontline really, really well. That's pretty frightening if you're a Sun Wukong. Because as long as there's enough lockdown, on-her will shred you with that passive, with the kin size, and impale into a pillar. That's frightening for anyone, even a tanky frontliner. But they do have positioning here. They are going to pull the Gold Fury. And the reason why is even though that Fear No Evil didn't get kills, it got 2 sets of beads. That is key. And that's why they can get this first Gold Fury of the game for free.
And to further the point, is Pyro will go the way of...
Okay, not free.
Of Kinkai. It's going to be close. Maybe Sasano could go crazy, but yeah, Kinkai's going to get the Pyromancer. I'm looking at... I want Storming Shadows to play more aggressive and really force the issue. With the tower down now, too, Griffin Wing on the side of Tatri, there is a good 2 to 5 minute window where you can take as many 1v1s as you want as Zoriat goes behind the tower. In response, Cheeto lands, finds a stun. Good damage comes out.
Still a
but on the double tap, Tatri will be there to clean it up. The rest of LWUB not yet able to respond. Storming Shadows fighting the world gets the Khepri ultimate as Asta Pasta goes in the backline. Fear No Evil gets used, and with the body blocks is working out on the slam. He'll find Tatri, but now the new game plan is to escape. Khepri is there to help out and playing pretty decent defense, and that will get Asta the Pasta away. So, aggressive dive, to say the least, from LWUB, but to their credit, it works out.
Yeah, so I think 2 for 1 in the end. Yeah, it was a good dunk in from Cheeto. Was able to get a lot of damage onto Zoriat, and I think they did get the kill. So, a nice response, having lost Brex on the backline from who knows where from. But it was a nice little flank around from Zoriat that no one noticed. But that's a nice response. Again, the problem you'd have to say is that Cheeto's not really gained anything from that. Asta got another kill. Asta got yet more relics burnt. I think there was a shell in there as well. Now you did get a kill for Tatri, who I think may have used the Griffin Wings and combined with the ranged autos. I think that's a theme for Tatri. Tatri seems to like that build. But that will help a little bit at reducing its deficit in the long lane. But you're going to need more convincing fights than that. And unfortunately, they're a long way off that because I hate to harp on about it, but once again, this Thor is slow to build up this. Wukong isn't rotating yet. That's going to be key. There's a pull in, lots of damage, and a frenzy, actually.
Talk about a gas pedal, but the follow-up's more important, and the Fear No Evil is good so far. It's real good. Asta will now have 4 kills of the 7 total for LWUB. LWUB will go their own way afterwards in the fight, and it's 7-2 now with a 4K lead, so pretty significant. And with where Asta is, I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon. I mean, for 17 minutes to be taking out tier 1s across the map, this is an entirely new team.
And that all comes from taking that tier 1 tower in the long lane. It means that actually and do whatever they want, because the lead is already there, farm is still there, but actually you can start having an impact across the map. And I really love that, especially on an Amher we know is so dominant in the early game, has so much kill potential on really anyone on the map, certainly at this stage of the game. Even Zenico is going to struggle to match up when Zenico does eventually rotate. Couldn't tell if that was stolen, but yeah. And we were talking a bit about the kind of team fight and how well they're going to do that. We saw a little glimpse with the CC they have, with the Fear No Evil, with the Typhoon as well, even though the Typhoon was way... it flew past my window, I think, in that past fight. But the way the Khepri works with that is very interesting. Because you either have to play with the Khepri with one really heavy dive character. They don't really have that at the moment. Certainly no one you can Khepri out. So instead, you need to play more around the Khepri sort of engage. Because normally... Khepri isn't thought of as well. His fight is very bad in a team fight because you can only hit one person. But when you think about the range stun on the solar flare, then you can get the pull in. It's actually a really, really good engage, and we saw it there. It was onto Reagami on the support, popped the frenzy, and there was plenty of follow-up damage. So if you're able to close the gap with that Khepri, get a pick, then it almost doesn't matter about the team fight because you're going to win the team fight with sheer numbers advantage. And that's kind of the way they want to play around it. They want to play around the ability to pick someone with the Khepri CC.
And what's really dangerous is you know where Hoombots is at all times. It's probably deep in your jungle, and we've seen that. Gold Fury gets pulled from LWUB while Pyromancer gets looked at on the other side. But the fight for Pyromancer is pretty serious, and an absolute delete of Zoriat is good. Cheeto going to look for Asta on landing and find it. Could be a lot of shutdown goal, but first he has to get away from Asta. Working out so far, but everyone's so low over there. But the lowest person is 6 feet deep, and that was Asta. And Gold Fury got stolen on the other side of the map. So... Kinkais just gets the better across the map, and LWUB gets completely caught sleeping, and you can see it from the charts. A deep skyrocket dive to the side of Kinkais. I'm so impressed by that. A complete turnaround.
I'm having flashbacks, Anthony. I really...
I know, buckle up. Right?
There's no way that should have happened. I mean, that was only the Terror stealing the Gold Fury. That just shouldn't happen straight up. That's a travesty that a level 11, level 12 Terror can step up and do that and not get killed. But then they decide to take the fight on the right-hand side. They're very much outnumbered in that fight because they rotate Taptree over. They're willing to give up the Gold Fury. The fact that it was stolen is a massive bonus for them, but they're willing to give it up because they know they can get kills. They kill Zoriat, they kill Asta, and that's sheerly because of numbers advantage. And I think also credit must go to Cheeto as well, who was able to bait himself really, really nicely in that fight. That was actually really low. That's a lovely somersault cloud in response to the Blink Fear No Evil and get away scot-free.
We're close to 20 minutes. 7-4. LWUB, Kinkais. It's scary to think that this could be anywhere similar to game one, but with the team comps the way they are and how much potential there is for one-shotting late, Zats, I'd suggest, grabbing the blankie, cuddling up, get it ready for a long one. Just it has that feel of, okay, you want to take us to game one in 1 hour? We will not lose from both sides. It's a mental for both teams in my mind. Because you could easily be tilted, but it doesn't look like either team is. Instead, they want blood. Kinkais will get the Pyromancer as well.
The concern for me is that LWUB have ran the early portion of the game, much as they did in game number one, through their jungler. They've got a big lead in ADC. Have they really? That's the concern for me. Suddenly, Taptree is even with Storming Shadows. We were talking about how impactful this Anher might be. They're now even across the board. This Yu Huang and this Thor are still slowly but surely getting online. Zenico, who hasn't really been any of these fights, is now level 20, is getting not too far off a full build, might have a binding yet to go, and then an upgrade to the Bluestone. Again, this now feels like, well, not desperation, but it feels like they're going, oh, we're actually not winning this as well as we should be. But there's a blink in and force the beads on Storming Shadows. What are they? What's their plan here?
I figure it out as they go. They do have Sasano and Humbats around the back of the fight, but keep your eyes on the map on the bottom left corner because Tatri is split pushing. We'll see how far the Shibalanke goes.
Oh.
That means full commit on the right side. Fear No Evil gets used. That's going to be one pickup onto Brex. LWUB have great positioning to push the fight further. Tier 2 tower going to fall in left. Slam down from Cheeto, but he slammed into a Typhoon and gets completely erased. Now LWUB can push even further. They're going to get a tier 1 of their own, but Tatri's on the Phoenix. So LWUB, they've got a ticking time bomb right now.
Oh, no.
But they were able to send Asta the Pasta back to defend. Now tier 2 tower in solo getting pushed out. Frenzy popped and Storming gets another kill for LWUB. Now they're going to look at a tier 2 tower and they save the Phoenix. And they might get Tatri too as Asta takes that fight on. One auto will do it. He finds it. Now Phoenix on the menu. Just Zeniko alive to defend it. Absolutely absurd response from LWUB, but they still got to get the Phoenix. Right now they're on Zeniko, but the reinforcements are respawning, so they're going to back up. So neither team gets the Phoenix. Tier 2 tower is gone in the long and the short lanes, and more absurd gameplay from the two teams. At 23 minutes, it's still a war, but gold is still leading XP, still jumping for LWUB.
Yeah, I think both teams forgot that they weren't 55 minutes in this game. You still don't do enough damage to Phoenixes at this stage. I actually don't mind.
It could have been a base race.
That's very, very true. I don't mind that call, you know. I think Tatri did a lot of work, got the tier 2. Unfortunately, wasn't able to take the Phoenix. Again, it's just that a little bit too early. What Kinkai's have to do there is recognize that we're a man down here. We need to back off. Why are we sitting under a tier 1 tower in solo lane trying to defend this when they've got a Humbats who's easily able to flank around the side, gets an okay ultimate. It didn't hit everyone, but it was a late beads coming out from Brex, unfortunately, and Brex was dead before they were able to do anything at all in that fight. And yeah, it's just slightly odd decision-making for me from the Kinkais. Whilst I don't mind the split push attempt, they would have been perfectly fine if they just backed off, gave up the tier 1 tower, taken a tier 2 in left in response, and that would have been absolutely fine. That would have been a trade that was in their favour, but instead, they stuck around too long to defend a tower that they had no right to be at. And in the end, they just lose a little bit too much.
With the Titans around the corner, that's gonna have to wait because
Whoa.
Asta the Pasta finds a new entry into the back line with the Fear No Evil and gets a pick. Brex is gone. LWUB continuing to find picks off at the back of Pasta. It's been a constant, and Kinkais just don't have an answer. Maybe more wards is the cleanest answer because they've got to know where Humbats is at all times. A pluck back from Kepri and the damage continues, and Zoriat finds a kill with the Typhoon. They're at the tier 2 tower. Kinkais can't get too crazy here. Kepri will use a self-revive off of the tier 2 tower as LWUB picks it up. Now the pluck back, that should be another pick for LWUB. Somersault Cloud will buy some time, but on the landing there's a lot of people waiting. But will they chase it? I don't know if the chase is the wisest move here, but they will do it. Asta chasing out the Sun Wukong. That allows time for Kinkais to chase their way back to the fight, and that keeps any potential Phoenix aggression, whether or not it would have been a good idea, from happening.
Yeah, sure. Maybe they could have had an attempt. They certainly could have tried and then backed off if they wanted to, but Zeniko determined to keep the Deathless going. We'll see if that remains. It depends how long this game goes on for, but at the moment it's really not looking good for the Kinkais, you have to say. They just need to... The problem is, it's happening again. Brex has been caught out by this Fear No Evil.
It's just non-stop. Oh, the pre-beads of the dueling dragons there. A mechanics just showcase from Asta the Pasta. And Zoriat was there with Typhoon to ensure the monkey could get away. Cheeto gonna look for a land onto the monkey, but couldn't find it. He's off. So that's an escape for Asta through all of it.
I can't believe... I don't mind the attempt. He just wants Cheeto to hit that. That would have been perfect. They'd have got the kill. That would have made it so worth it to shut down this 8-1 Humbats. It's a little bit unlucky. It doesn't look great, unfortunately. And now they're trying to kill Zeniko again. Zeniko will last a long time is forced into the ult once again, but time and time again, we're seeing that the biggest problem for King Kai's is that they're never in a 5v5 because it's Brex or it's someone else getting picked off early, usually by Asta, and that combined with the long CC chain out of this Kepri, we mentioned that earlier, it's a really good engage tool. There's another one onto Tatri.
And that's going to be a pick up of Tatri. Storming Shadows gets the credit, and now LWUB has a new opening to W key, while Zenico will be pushing in the solo lane, so no front line either. They're going to kill the Chaos Titan before it even has time to throw hands with the Order Titan. And hey, in Cheeto's defense, Humbats has a really tiny hitbox. Obviously, that's what it was, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for defending Cheeto. We're doing what I have failed to do this entire set is slump.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the percentage drop. Oh, we'll see if the percentage goes up.
Here we go.
In the sky. They're all lined up. They're all grouped up. And he found everybody. And the response from Brex was fantastic. That's what they needed. But will they clean everyone up? They actually
still losing.
lost out on the fight. They could get some picks off of it, but they still have Asta to deal with. They will clean up the Kepri. So far, 2-4-2. I can't believe that happened, but fear no evil will clean up the last member of that fight. The Titan did push into Phoenix, so that's low, but the fact that that ultimate hit everybody and generations before them, that hit their great-grandparents, and Kinkai still could not pick up a deicide there is criminal.
It's such a shame. They're just not in the position to capitalize on what was a fantastic ultimate from Cheeto. I knew he'd hit it, I believed from the beginning, and it was fabulous. And it timed pretty well.
Any believers?
And it was timed really well with the dueling dragons. The damage coming out of it wasn't as amazing as we'd hoped. There was also may have been a Terror ult in there, which would have helped, but somehow only managed to kill off one from that massive combo of ultimates. And the problem is when you've used all those ultimates at once and not killed enough, then you're just going to lose that fight afterwards. Unfortunately, there were just too many stragglers with not enough left, and Brex ends up falling again. They managed to kill Zenico as well on the backside. It's so unfortunate they're not a little bit closer in terms of gold and XP, and if the deficit was a bit narrower, and if Tatri hadn't been picked up beforehand, because if they had Tatri there for that fight as well, I think that really might have been a deicide in favour of the Kinkais. But what looked like a great fight for them, they were just left a little bit short, but we've seen it work, sort of. Now they just need to try and do that again when they're a bit more on parity, when they've got a few more items, and they will be able to win this game if they can do that again.
Zenico playing so deep, forced into that Fear No Evil, or excuse me, into that Somersault Cloud very, very early. No response from LWUB, just kind of accepting the damage they did to Zenico and taking the Somersault Cloud and backing away with their gains. And like you said, the gold lead has been consistently growing. It's up to 5K, 30 minutes on the clock, just about. 18-6 right now, favoring LWUB. They're 1 game away from loser's bracket. Kinkai's 1 game away from finals. But you wouldn't know that from the feel of this game. This game has felt like LWUB's got momentum. They're 1 game away. I mean, that spells trouble.
Yeah, and it tells me how confident they are. But again, another engage, and Cheeto is up into the air. They are full on retreating off of that engage, and that should open up the door.
Such quick engages.
Yeah, ooh, a big stun as well.
It's constantly the pluck and the dive from the Yorm, and they're doing it again. LWUB just able to make these engages happen completely out of nowhere. It catches Kinkais off guard every time, because it goes from it being a stagnant kind of dance around an area to all of a sudden you've got 2-3 people in your face. You got a Humbats blinking in with Fear No Evil, and it while predictable, sure, from our perspective, that's really tough to play around from the third person perspective.
I think the biggest problem with that is yes, it's predictable, but there's a giant snake that you're trying to keep your eye on that's actually doing a surprising amount of damage, and you can't really ignore. And actually, I think with the space that Apatos is creating, it just means that there's a bit more room to maneuver for these 2 assassins to jump into the backline. And what it actually means is that a low health bar, Asta's going to have to use the ultimate to secure it here.
But will pick it up. That's no support for Kinkais and no global ultimate, and now LWUB trying to take advantage. They're going to chase out Zenico, World Serpent to follow. Somersault Cloud is forced. This could be a beautiful Fire Giant, but will LWUB focus on blood, or will they look at the objective? That's the question of every lower division throughout all of the Amateur League. But LWUB will head towards the Fire Giant for now, and they've got a really good stall defense for Fire Giant to be taken by Garrett and Storming Shadows. Zoriat kind of playing the in-between, while Asta and Apple Toast play the defense. But Cheeto has ultimate, so look for Cheeto to potentially go aggressive. LWUB actually drops the Fire Giant and head in, and now from aggressive to defensive, Cheeto has no opening, has to retreat. That's no Thor for Kinkais. That's more aggression for LWUB.
And the problem is you really can't afford to give up an enhanced Fire Giant. I don't think you can do that. To be fair to them, they're stalling enough. And actually, this isn't too bad at all, because look how far LWUB have been dragged down. The damage as well, coming from Chatri and that ultimate, combined with the Griffin Wing. That's no damage to sniff at. That's pretty good. And they've dragged them out of that Fire Giant and almost baited them so far away from it. It's just stalling over and over again. If they keep doing it, eventually, LWUB will slip up.
Especially because it stops backing, it stops any resetting. So now with a new intro, we've got Zoriat playing jungler, actually, and getting aggressive onto Brex, and a lot of damage comes out from that. But Fear No Evil was used. That's huge. That has been LWUB's W button, has been using that Fear No Evil, but now that's down. That is an opening for Kinkais that they have to take. I mean, everyone's backing now, too. Fear No Evil's down. I mean, go, 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 go.
Yeah, I don't know if you can pull Enhanced Fire Giant. I kind of think take that tower, get a bit more gold in your pocket. I don't think, to be fair, the gold lead is not as massive as would suggest by the way these two teams are playing, but it does feel like the Kinkais, they're doing just enough at the moment to, as we say, stall it out, keep themselves in the game, and it's just making it uncomfortable enough for LWUB that they can't pull this EFG. They can't get a clean pick, despite some of the positioning coming out from Kinkais, and there's yet more time being bought by the Kinkais, time to get these final items finished up for Cheeto and for Brex. That's all really, really valuable, I think. So I really like what they're doing here. The issue is they don't want to let it get to their heads. Don't think, well, we're starting to turn these fights a little bit. Maybe we can start getting aggressive. You don't need to change anything. Let the Fire Giant do a ton of damage. Don't worry about pulling it yourself. And actually, that's kind of what they've done. They've played it pretty conservatively here. And I'm pretty pleased with that, because they know they're still at a deficit, but they're just playing it patiently. They're playing it calmly. They're waiting for LWUB to make the mistake themselves.
And that's what happened last game. That's exactly how LWUB almost won last game, was playing off those mistakes. 34 minutes, 5,500. Just another crazy, crazy game. I mean, not as close this time, but the writing is all over the wall that Kinkais just needs one good fight. That's all they need to get themselves completely back in the game and on the same page as LWUB. The advantage, the huge lead, that's yesterday. That's gone. It's much closer now. LWUB almost got a pick, but not able to on Zenico quite yet.
And the thing is, with their draft, we know it works. We know the big combo of ultimates can be really, really effective. And now they've just got straight up more items, like tons of damage coming out on Zenico. That's the lockdown we were talking about. They're looking for a pick. That's what LWUB are doing. And to Kinkai's credit, they're grouping up effectively so that they're not allowing Khepri to be useful. Because really, Khepri is all about that single target CC. But there's a bit of scrapping going on. Typhoon and gets the kill into Cheeto.
That's massive. With Cheeto gone, LWUB has a completely new advantage in this fight. They haven't had a fight without the risk of a Thor ultimate in a while. LWUB pushes them out, and now they hear Zats. They're heading to Fire Giant. They've got to worry about Zenico lurking around on a weird side to respond to, but they're actually not going to focus fire. They're going to look for Zenico and commit. Fear No Evil, and the Impale is enough to erase him. But Apple Toast has been diving deep to keep Kinkais from getting there, and in turn got very low himself. So he has the back, does have that TP up, and Fire Giant will be started. EFG could go to LWUB. Will Kinkais be able to respond? They've got some time. It's just now at half health. They've got
Not
their
again.
Terra close to the pit. It's gonna be a close one. They're gonna call the 50-50 because Terra's really close. It's down to a quarter health. The defense good so far. Terra in the pit. LWUB get the EFG out from underneath Kinkais after a good attempt at a steal. Just a retreat from Kinkais, and LWUB will have time to reset, take their EFG, and plot their course.
Do you know what? I don't think either side are particularly unhappy with how that went. The steal attempt was pretty good. They don't lose much in response. They'd already lost Denico and Cheeto before that EFG pull. That's got to sting a bit, and it means you're finally going to have to give up that EFG after so long of actually preventing LWUB from taking it. But LWUB, they finally got what they're after. Now they can start looking at this game in terms of objectives. They can clean up this final tier 2 tower. They can definitely make a push into at least one Phoenix, and they should rightly go to that left-hand side one first. Clean up a Gold Fury on the way there or on the way back. It doesn't matter. Now the game is in their hands. It is theirs to lose. What are they going to do with it? Are they gonna look to push in really aggressively? They need to be wary of the defense because again, on sieges, Chibalonke is pretty good. If you can pop that ultimate and get some bowlers off, they're pretty useful. Brex as well is going to have good poke potential, but you have to say it's not as strong as compared to having a Jormungandr or a Discordia, for example. But for now, they've deterred them a little bit. They are right to be a little bit scared of the poke coming out, but they've got a wave in now. Let's see what they do with it.
LWUB is knocking on the door of the Phoenix. Kinkai's just looking for any kind of opening. Cheeto could be the answer. We saw a 4-man ultimate earlier on, and it nearly turned the tides, but wasn't a deicide. Cheeto believers rise up. Will this be the ultimate to turn it around for Kinkais, or can LWUB take advantage of the positioning and dive in deep?
Yes, I believe. The problem is, Cheeto does now have beads up, so there's no, you're not too concerned about getting soloed in the mid lane, but tanks are going in. There's not much else, though.
They're very hyper aware of the Thor. The Thor landing's gonna find Khepri, but the ultimate from Khepri in response will keep Khepri in, but just for a short time as Tatri cleans him up on the respawn. Not quite the impact deicide play we were looking for, but the importance of that can't be understated because now LWUB forced away from the edge of the Phoenix, while Kinkais have time to kind of regroup, repair, and drop new wards. That time that was bought is so valuable.
Yeah, it's just enough. It's just what they needed. They got a pick, and now they can just sit back. Now they shouldn't get too aggressive. They do need to be wary still, but the fact is that your base is still intact. It, again, buys time to farm up just that little bit more. They are actually going to start grouping up. Maybe you can look for a pick, but I still think this is a bit risky. You're still not keen on fighting LWUB at the moment with the FG, with the damage that is coming out. You've only killed their support, so you do need to be careful. I don't think you should step up too much, and rightfully so. They're just gonna, you've got Cheeto split pushing in the right hand side, getting a bit more farm. This is fine. They need to keep slow playing it, let EFG run itself down, and make sure that you have a full 3 Phoenixes when the next enhanced Fire Giant spawn.
If you're LWUB, a simple question for you.
Mm.
The last few fights, the theme feels to be they can't quite get a deicide. They can't get rid of everybody. They get a pick or two, and then Kinkais just have all the time in the world to retreat. What can you do to change that? Right now, Zoriat trying to change that will get rid of Cheeto. I mean, that's a massive pick, but this is what we're talking about. Now they're still 4 up. Zats, what can they do to clean up the rest?
Well, they do now have the numbers advantage, but you're really looking to get a nice to someone and just to force them out. But actually, they're going straight on it.
It's going to be a hard commit, but they're going to pay for their crimes.
Okay.
They lose Storming Shadows. Apple Toast also low. LWUB might have overplayed there a bit, and now they're in a lot of trouble. Garrett's not going to be able to get out of there either. Another kill for Tatri, jumping up to 4 already. That was not what LWUB wanted to do right there.
No, they did get the Phoenix. That is worth pointing out. Is that worth it for 2. Again, you called Cheeto earlier, but that's not so relevant. But you've got to pick on Storming Shadows. That's pretty useful. Got the Kepri ultimate nice and early in that fight. Off of what was a pretty big engage from LWUB themselves. And to be fair, they got what they needed. Obviously, the Anha had to step up to really commit to that Phoenix. They got what they wanted, but it depends what Kinkai's get in response, because they're now pushing up to a tier 2. They might even look for a Phoenix here.
It's going to be a 5-on-3, and Kinkai's know they need to take advantage of what they've created. They're going to look for Asta, couldn't find him. Tier 2 tower should be easy enough to get, but they're buying time to get themselves set up for a nice EFG attempt as well.
Yeah.
Zoriat going to try to get some good damage on Zenico, but has to retreat. But that does spread Kinkais a little bit, which probably saves a fight for Asta the Pasta, potentially keeping the Humbot safe. Now, new target, EFG.
And it does feel like, even though they've got 5 minutes to deal with, this feels like a really risky pull. They should this pretty quickly. They do have a bit of sustain, so it's like you said, support and ADC can stay on it for a bit, but it's not as much as a Yamoja, the Terror Sustain. And actually, they need to take a fight.
Zenico's already down low. Fire Giant at quarter health, but they got to get to the pit. In the air is Cheeto on the landing to help for secure. LWUB gonna steal the Fire Giant. That was written all over it. And in the response, they're gonna chase Kinkais out from the Fire Giant. Just one of the easiest steals we've seen in a while. They had everything available for it. Kinkais took the 50-50 and get the bad end of it. And now LWUB pushes the Phoenix, a 2-man pull from Zoriat to get one dropped, and it was Cheeto. So believers, sit down for the time being, because LWUB is pushing in. That's another one dropped. And LWUB looking to force a game 3. Gonna be a 3-on-5 in the throne room. Titan gonna drop to half, a quarter. It's gone before you can blink. We're going to a game 3.
And very much deserved for the LWUB. Fair play. They played that very, very well. They were in control throughout the game. And even when there were a couple of misplays, they always knew the position they were in. They can always just take that one fight and win the game. They didn't even need EFG for that one. But the fact is, it was a bizarre call, wasn't it, from Kinkai's, because you had Zenico dying in the backline, and while he was buying time, sure, having to use the Somersault Cloud was able to buy some time. They're just going to walk in and steal it. And the fact is, when you're fighting and trying to take an enhanced Fire Giant, you are always at a disadvantage, because you're essentially fighting a 5v6, because that Fire Giant is swinging away at all your teammates, and that's always going to be a losing fight. There's so rarely a time when you can go for enhanced Fire Giant when there are 4 or 5 members up on the other team. It's just too risky, and in the end, they take a load of damage, they lose the FG, and they lose the game.
I mean, what do I say? I just have to exhale. I have to breathe. I have to think. LWUB just completely dominated this game. They fumbled a bit, and the game took longer than it needed, but it just looked like Kinkais just couldn't get comfortable, and we kept talking about it. 1 game from finals, 1 game from losers bracket. Now we're going to a game 3, and it's winner take all, essentially. I mean, the losers bracket is going to be a tough grind. You don't want to go there. You want to sit comfy in finals, and both teams have every opportunity to do it. Last quick thoughts on game 2 from you, Zats, before we move on to a break before game 3.
I think now, if you're Kinkai's, you need to completely reset sort of mentally. This is now just a best of 1. The winner takes it all. So just reset. Don't worry about what happened that game. Focus, I think, more on your own style of play, on what you want to do. Go back to that kind of, actually, we're going to play what we like to play. Because actually, maybe they were baited into the Yu Kwang pick a bit. Maybe they were baited into the Sun Wukong pick a bit. Go back to what you know. Go back to what you want to play. And that might make it interesting come into this game 3. But I'm looking forward to it either way.
I am too, but thankfully we get to take a piddle break in between to try to collect our thoughts. So we'll be right back on GSL with game 3 between LWUB and Kinkais. Don't go anywhere. It's going to be a crazy one.
your room all day. You say it's for my safety, but I'm just one of your prey. She's got a gun and a bag, and she's waiting for you. She has the time to decide how she's gonna kill you. You can keep running, keep your eyes wide open, but you'll never see it coming. No use. She's got a gun and a bag, and she's waiting for you.
Hello and welcome back to GSL Semifinals. It's LWUB versus Kinkai's Game 3 time winner. Gets to sit cozy in the finals and watch all the peasants fight it out in the losers bracket. I'm Anthony Malum, once again joined by Zats and Ginger Archer still on production for us. And Zats, Game 3. I am not surprised, but I'm so ready.
Yeah, you're right, actually. I'm not surprised at all because both these teams have shown that they're capable of winning games. And actually, to be 1-1 at this stage of the semi-final, one game to win it, to go through into the final, it actually makes perfect sense. I'm delighted for both these teams because they put on a really good show. And it proves that these two are clearly the best of the best in this division. Maybe we'll see them again matched up in the final anyway. But I'm so pumped to be here. And actually, we're already seeing some adjustments as we get to pick some bands for game number 3.
Yeah, Kinkai's let that Hoombots through in game 2 after banning it in game number 1, and it looks like they learned why they banned it.
Wow.
And now Sasano makes it through to round 1. So both the jungler and the mid laner from game number 2 have been taken away from LWUB. If it works, take it out back and shoot it, I guess, is Kinkai's approach.
That being the jungler, I suppose. But they've also taken away the Yorm on the side of LWUB. That's really important for me because the Yorm has been the winning god, the winning solo laner for the last 2 games. I don't know how impactful that's actually been. I do think there have been bigger factors other than solo lane, but I'm certainly happy to see it gone, get it out of Aptos' hands. I'm totally fine with that. We've basically got 3 assassins gone, not all necessarily junglers.
The name
but,
is Freya.
That means there's going to be
Remember.
a lot on the table.
And the first one on the table taken away is Freya, who we've seen be a top ban in this
No
current
god
meta.
nor
So
demon
it
can
getting picked up
defeat
first
me.
It's scary, but that did leave a Raven open for LWUB to pick up, which we've also seen banned in the first 2 games.
Yeah, big adjustments, and this is what we're talking about, almost those metas. We've got to ban all these picks. You're going to start seeing how these guys can play on the really meta stuff, on the really considered strong stuff. Freya, I actually don't know if she's the strongest magical agency by now. I think she probably is, but I think there's some decent competition there. It is a risky first pick, and it always will be because she's got no dash ability. She's so reliant on that Valkyrie's discretion as for any form of escape. It's also helpful for that. What LWUB have done in response, though, I don't mind giving up the Freya. I don't like taking the Sun Wukong here. I think you have to be able to flex that Raven into the solo lane, because I actually think that's where he's stronger at the moment. Worth pointing out that when he got nerfed in the last patch, it was nerfs to his damage. It was not a nerf to the constant shielding and mitigations that he's getting. That's a big problem for me. That's where he's best in the solo lane.
It
Where
is
he becomes an
time for
incredible
some
menace.
fireworks!
With Sun Wukong on the field, it's obviously going into the jungle. I'm just not a bigger fan of that.
My goodness, the believers are eating good today. A run back of the Thor. 3 games, 3 Thors for Cheeto on Kinkai. But the Baba Yaga, almost more importantly, gets through.
Yeah, and I think I was surprised that this wasn't first pick. Surprised second or picked. They finally take it away. I like Breck's pick. I don't think the Yu Huang was so good. Baba is, again, a little bit slow, a bit like the Yu Huang, a bit like the Discordia, but Baba, once she gets online, and it is a bit quicker than the Yu Huang because of that passive, the ability to stack so quickly, you do so much damage. You're so incredibly safe. There's another top pick that's been completely ignored, interestingly, as we get the Kuzenbo lock in for LWUB
you said
as well.
that in game 2.
It's bizarre. Absolutely bizarre.
I mean, both of these compositions are disgusting, but I do stand right by your side on the flex pick of Raven. I think that hurts LWUB a lot here. And
so.
with all the options that were left open too, because of how that first, I mean, yes, they ban your Thanatos, they get rid of Sasano as an option, and they ban the Hoombots, which played so well. There was still a lot of options. Now you've really put yourself in an awkward position of they know exactly what you're doing and who's going where, and they can plan the rest of their draft around controlling just what they don't want. And we see that with the Agni.
Yeah, and I kind of think well, did we need to take the Sun Wukong away from Apple Toast? I don't think it's the most impactful pick in game number 1 for Apple Toast. So, I'm not a fan on it. But I won't harp on any longer because Raven Jungle is still very potent and it's got a pretty good matchup into Thor. And again, it suits Asta's playstyle. Early game aggression, early ganks in that duo lane, mostly, possibly in the solo lane as well. It depends what the matchup is over there, but it will work perfectly well. I've no doubt about that.
So where do we go from here? The Hachiman banned away from Storming Shadows. Do we see an on her run back?
I would like to see the on her. I think I'm a bit surprised that we haven't seen things like Rama. I think Rama's still pretty good. Kind of does the same as Hachiman. Very, very safe with the ultimate and allows you to dive at the front line because you're just sniping them from miles away. But the Anher, I suppose the same kind of thing. A bit more backline oriented. You can really shred a front line, and we saw Storming Shadows doing that really effectively against Zenico in game number 2. So I do like the Anher run back. Especially good into Freya as well. If you can get a knock up onto her, I mean that's toast for Freya. You're going to be in big trouble. More
that
so
level
than most
1,
other
so
agencies.
tough.
Yeah.
Level 2 even. Kuzenbo on her against the Freya. I mean, that's a really bad. That first 2 minutes could go so poorly for Freya.
I'd almost like to see the Kepri here actually in response because you need a support that can actually help you clear the way that because as you say. This Kuzumo on her duo lane, that's a kill lane. It's not even about clear. It's about we've got damage, we've got CC to absolutely destroy you if you are not careful. This is very interesting. I don't mind it though.
With a Hebo hover, would this be a believer sit down moment? And is that Thor going solo?
I'm praying for Thor to go solo. I would love to. I think Thor is actually better solo. I'm sorry, Cheeto, but I'd love to see it in Zenico. Actually, I think it's fine in Sun Wukong. It does struggle a bit early, but I do think it's probably the best solo that's still up at the moment. Hebo is a bit more questionable. I'm assuming it's going to be going jungle if they do lock it in, but I do think Hebo will have some struggles because if you think Raven's gonna boss the early game like Ashes done game 1 and 2, Hebo's not gonna be able to do anything about that.
Horus will be the final lock-in, so a total change-up for Kinkais here in composition.
Crazy.
Because we're not even seeing the Thor go back to the jungle, so a completely new look coming out with everything on the line here to be able to sit cozy in the finals, as you can see on the bracket. Because the losers bracket, they got a long way to wait. And for the final lock-in, LWUB back against the wall. What are they going for? They're dropping the crazy assassin mids, and they're hovering a Scylla.
Interesting pickup. Not a lot of setup, I would say. I think Kuzumo, I mean, if you can get the push, sure. But I think you'd be looking for a little bit more. I mean, these are going to have to be find or from your own setup.
You're asking for a lot of free casting.
Yeah. I mean, you know, has that in their locker. Certainly the way they played the last 2 games. I'm sure Zoria has the mechanical skill to do that. I've no doubt about that. It's not the first thing that comes to mind, but you have to say, when you look at the 4 other picks that are going to be just trying to kill everyone, I think when you pair it with the Anher, I mean, any frontliner is going to immediately die just to an Anher and a Scylla alone. And what it means, actually, Kuzumo can go and dive with the front line because you're really not worried about this backline at all if they do lock in the Scylla.
That's a good point, and that leaves a lot of openings for Raven to do some of that damage that we were afraid could be lacking. So that's an interesting perspective on the team fights. The only problem with that is now you could run into a Baba Yaga situation where you're trying to dive because you have that opportunity with Kuzenbo, and you're just getting met with Baba's Brews left and right. House, just raining down on you, and you can't even respond to it because there's too much damage coming in.
Yeah, I the more I think about it, the more we talk about it, the more I'd actually this Scylla lock-in. Because I just think it would be perfect as long as the backline stay next to each other. Then it'll be just fantastic.
And they do commit and lock in the Scylla, which means it is game time. Everything on the line here. The winner gets to sit pretty in finals and wait for their opponent. Kinkais versus LWUB, game 3 time. I'm Anthony Malum. I'm joined by Zats, and I am so looking forward to this set. We do have a pause, so we have to hamper the expectations just for a slight second longer. But we did get some information out of that. We know where people are going, which is the big thing.
Yeah, and no surprises to see. They put the Hebo in the jungle, they put the solo. I think the correct combination to do. I mean, in years past, you might have put the Hebo in solo lane. I actually think if you're with the tablet book builds at the moment, there are room for mages in the solo lane, but I just think Thor is one of the top solo laners at the moment, even on nerfs, and can actually compete with the Sun Wukong in terms of the sort of hybrid damage builds that you can go at the moment that are ever so popular. With the Gladiator Shield, with the all the proccing items that you can get. Thor does that really, really well, if not better than Sun Wukong, I would argue. So I'm perfectly happy with it. The Hebo is questionable, but at least you put it in the right spot. I'll be interested to see what Cheeto builds, probably into a Doom Orb, but again, there's very little pressure, presence, anything coming out from the King Kais, and if they're not careful, this game could actually be over very quickly. Unlike the first two games we've seen.
I can't help but wonder if the Cheeto believers are still going to support the Hebo as much. I hope so.
I hope so. I believe.
mean,
I always believe
those
in Cheeto.
combos are going to be nasty, surely.
That's true, and I'm sure easier to hit a Hebo and level 12 as well. You can't ignore Hebo damage, and you kind of just, as long as you get to that late stage and get those items online, you will one-shot people. But I just think it's going to be really, really difficult to get onto a Scylla, get onto an Arnher, and certainly the jungle matchup is really not in your favour at all. You never want to fight into a Raven. He just roots you, he slows you. The slow's not relevant, but then you can never ult him because he's just got two forms to avoid it with the drop kick and the over and the ultimate as well. So it's just not a good matchup for me. I'm intrigued as to why he picked it, but I'd love to be proven wrong.
I would have loved for you to have a seat in the comms, and not just so I could have heard you and Cheeto throw hands, but so you could have gotten the information there. An oddly calm laning phase compared to what we expected. We both were looking at a kill lane from Freya Kuzenbo, but not the case so far. Shockingly calm, I would say.
And I think part of that is probably down to Horus can do. His wave clear is pretty good. He does have, normally he has kill potential. It's not so relevant with Freya next to you. He's also very mobile as well, and that's actually really important because you've basically got two dashes in the kit, which you can get. Well, he'll have both of them, I imagine, at this level 3. Possibly won't have leveled the heal yet, but that's beside the point. It means you're actually pretty safe. Tetri clearly knows that they have to play very far back. Actually, if they avoid all that, they will actually be able to keep up in terms of clearing against the Kuzenbo and Arnher, no problem.
Where do you expect? Because the last two games, we've had two completely different first blood scenarios. Game 1, it was pure chaos. Game 2, it was more drawn out and kind of clear in solo. Where do you expect that first big engagement this game, which would lead into where are you expecting the pressure to be this game?
I think it will be Asta the Pasta. I think it should be in the duo lane. Horus might be honestly a bit of a problem for that. Plus, they've got a shell as well. So, honestly, it might actually lend itself to getting a kill onto Brex in the mid lane because although you can't interrupt the blast off from Baba Yaga, you can track it really well and you can bait it really, really well. But you don't even have to blink in. You can just walk up, force Baba to start channeling that jump, and then you immediately follow with your own ult. And there's nothing a Baba can do from that. Because you can also avoid the knock-up from the home sweet home as well with the overhead kick. It's just... it's such a good Raven game. But here we go. Here's the aggression.
Such a good Raven gank, potentially. But they've got to get follow-up behind it, and they
There we
will.
go.
First blood goes to LWUB on her. That's huge. That's exactly what you want if you're an LWUB fan, is get that on her some kills so he can take those 1v1s with Freya, where for at least the next couple levels, it's not even a question. When you get later, sure, it's tough to 1v1 Freya, but on her can dominate for these next few minutes, especially with a lead.
Yeah, and no change for Asta the Pasta. Gonna keep it up. Same as game 1, same as game 2. Get the pressure across the map, help your team out, get a lead just through kills and ganks alone. And that's perfect for what Raven wants to do. Maybe you should be fighting Ahibo a bit more, but Cheeto is wisely staying well out of the way of any kind of jungle scuffle at this early stage of the game. I do think that was not perfectly played, and then they were a little bit lucky to get that kill. I think there was still a shell available for us, and I think if that had been popped, they maybe wouldn't have gotten that kill. I also think, well, once you blink in, you don't need to throw the root immediately. You could have held, actually, that Ravno a little bit longer and save it for the chase, because I think that horse very nearly got out. Speaking of which, Zenico, no mana, looks to be dead.
None at all. Can walk around in circles all he wants. Won't stop the second kill for LWUB. That is exactly how they need this early game to go. But we have seen, in fairness, that late games matter a lot. And we didn't talk much about late game, which probably was a mistake considering where we've been at
Yeah.
for these first two. But the Baba Yaga, in particular, is so good in late, long-running games. That Baba's Brew over a wall, around a corner, as a steal, so underrated in my mind.
Yeah, I would argue it's better than Scylla in that regard, because it's instant, it's hard to avoid, and she gets two of them. She's a crazy character because the damage output she has is ridiculous. She has lots of sneaky utility that, again, you don't really play around. Oh, I'm going to silence them here, I'm going to slow them here, I'm going to get protections here. You don't really worry about any of that Baba has, but you'll always find that I've been silenced at the perfectly annoying time there, and that the Baba didn't mean it because it's just there, but it's just one of those things that she has so much stacked utility in her kit, as well as all the damage and all the safety she has. I think she's easily a match for Scylla come late game, and is actually a bit quicker to get off the mark as well.
Which is going to be important because, like you pointed out, the instant of the brew versus the delay of a monster, that's something that we've seen become a big problem of Scylla. And with the way these objectives have gone, it feels like every fire giant we've seen is a 50-50 almost. And if your objective secure isn't clad iron, that's going to be a bit of a problem.
Full agree. And that's always been the caveat with Scylla. And there's a gank coming out. I'm not sure
But Zenico got into the air with maybe 100
Wow. That's very, very lucky for Zenico. There was some help coming, but it didn't really matter. It does have the teleport. We are seeing the problem with Thor solo. It's always been a problem, even when Thor has been considered top solo character. Still probably is, to be honest. Really struggles with mana sustain early, really struggles to clear in the early game. You need levels and you need your blue buff desperately. We often see, and in fact, Zenico has now gone that tier 1 of the magical spikes just to get that MP5. We normally see people rush it, actually, from level 1, just because you need as much MP5 and mana sustain as you can possibly get. And we're seeing that Zenico ran out of mana for that first gank, and he's now struggling a little bit in lane, especially compared to a Wukong. This is classic Thor struggles. Can you help as well? Can Cheeto help get Zenico through the laning phase? And to be fair to Zenico, on parity in terms of levels, now has a bit of clear online, got some levels in the hammer as well. Should be able to cope okay now, as long as no more ganks coming out from Asta.
And that's needed. You got to control Asta. I mean, not obviously the same presence as Humbots, but still, you have to respect what is potential there. Zoriat, very poked out in mid, had to go for the escape, which that's going to be a theme too. I feel like for these everybody's grouped up skirmishes, Zoriat's going to have a tough time. I think that late game, you have the freedom of movement. You're not kind of more stuck in a lane. I think that's where Zoriat's going to shine.
Yeah, and the concern for me, if you're trying to kill the Scylla, who's going to do it? Because really, it's only Thor that can ever reach a Scylla. No one else can reach Scylla. Hebo can't do that. As we see aggression in the duo lane, there's a full wave for Tactic to deal with before even fighting the Unheard, and the ult's forced early. And
there is lurking green. Horus is there. So Storming Shadow is forced to go on the escape, but not very low, not very healthy, very low for this escape. Gonna have a tough time. Soul Lane, similar story, but reverse team. Zenico in tons of trouble. 2 ultimates dropped, lead to 1 death from Zenico. Storming Shadows still getting chased now between tier 1 and 2, but just Horus was doing the chasing, so Storming will be fine. Zenico, not so much.
Yeah, very, very happy with that. They played the map perfectly well. They noticed Zenico well. Zenico's just ulted down on the left-hand side. Storming Shadows didn't use anything there. Like, forced the ultimate nice and early. Oh, Horus is coming in. I guess I better just run away. And actually doesn't need to use beads, doesn't need to use ultimate. It's perfect. And the response as well from LWUB to recognise, well, we can go and pressure solo even more. We've already got loads there. Let's keep this Thor down, because really, I think Zenico has been one of the star players for King Kaiser, has to be said. So when you get them on a pick like Thor, absolutely you should be shutting them down whenever possible. And it's a great rotation from Zoriat in the mid lane. Not sure how you get to out clear and out rotate a Baba Yaga as a Scylla, but gets it done, and it works really in favour for LWUB, and they're thoroughly in control at this early stage.
At 10 minutes, aside from the 3 kills, hasn't been a lot to talk about. No kills so far for Kinkais. The gold is around 500. XP is shooting up in favor of LWUB, but not as significant either. Not even 1,000 yet. So this is still anybody's game. Throwing Shadows in a bit of trouble, getting chased down by Hastened and Hebo. Also here, Desert Fury used, but with the help of Crushing Wave, Storming Shadows gets crushed. But Raven on the response, cooldowns down for Cheeto. But Mystic Rush hit the Ghost of Christmas Past on the right-hand side, while Cheeto was able to escape. So Asta just trying to maybe reposition, miscalculates entirely and leads to an escape from Cheeto.
Unlucky, just a bit too slippery. Got that Doom Orb, was on the carpet as well. So really, really quick is that Hebo, and just needed one more auto for Asta, but unfortunately not able to confirm on what is a very slippery target. And then the ultimate, a little bit wayward. It's fair to say, a little bit off the mark. You'd be disappointed with that one. Still though. Okay, so you don't get a return kill after the rotation from Cheeto. You get a nice shutdown onto Storming Shadows. Unfortunately, Cheeto didn't get the kill, but actually what it does mean is that Tatri got it. Tatri's now 2 levels up off 1 kill. It's incredible how quickly those things can swing in your favor. But that's a really bad look. But there's our monster not quite on the mark.
The spin to win almost set up for the I'm a Monster, but that's what you talked about. The free casting I'm a Monster going to be something to keep an eye out on. Tatri, by the way, in mid lane, and trouble for Zoriat leads to a death from Home Sweet Home. Brex will get the credit. It's going to be a retreat from Kinkais after this, assumedly, because there's no rotation from Storming Shadows, but with Asta lurking and health bars low, Beacon is the only thing that they'll be able to get here.
Really surprised that they kind of make that work in their favor, and I guess that's all because of getting that kill onto the Unknown. Gives Tatri the room, the space to just rotate for this first beacon, and then they're like, well, actually, we can just kill Scylla here. We forced the Sentinel nice and early, and then it's just sheer aggression coming out from Tatri. Again, does have the hastened rig online, and that's key for Freya to be able to swing in these fights. We are seeing how effective it can be if it's allowed to free cast, and at the moment they just don't have anything to do that. Cheeto wasn't even in that fight. Cheeto was off farming the right hand side jungle, but there could be a bit of a scuffle here as they group around this goal.
It's always an option here. The shield buff is always contest, but Desert Fury used this time. I was just going to say a lot of times we don't see a hard commit, and then Desert Fury starts flying through the air, so I guess that's why I don't give the analysis here. But regardless, shield buff wasn't even taken. It's glowing green, so taken from Kinkais there, so rough times for LWUB. Oh, excuse me, it was LWUB that picked it up. It was green, but it went to LWUB. Apologies.
Yeah, I guess that's worth it. You're getting you're reducing the deficit a little bit, and I don't mind that. As long as punished within the next minute or so, you get that ult back on cooldown, then off of cooldown, I should say. Then it's absolutely fine. I don't have a problem with it as such. And actually, Shadows has done a good job here with taking that buff, with taking the tier 1 tower. It's worth pointing out it was a nice response to the early rotation from Tatri. And that's kind of the trade-off. You have to decide as an ADC, are you willing to make that trade? But actually, speaking of that, they're going to go for a Gold Fury. Now, the damage is not great with basically 3 mages here, but it is going down, and there's not anything in response from LWUB.
They didn't know, so it's going to be a Gold Fury for Kinkais. So by the time anybody noticed, it was completely too late. So that's gonna help Kinkais kind of keep this game even more even than it was. A slight gold lead, just about 300 there. And here's what's interesting to me. Game 1 and Game 2 were long games because the fighting was so constant that it kept the team that was down in the game. This game is nothing like that. We're even because it's so slow, because it's so calm. And a lot of times those lead not necessarily to long barn burners, those lead to surprising ends off of opportunity.
Yes, because you'll suddenly find, well, hang on, we've just got a deicide and we can end the game. And actually, you'd have to say that kind of big double tap there. It kind of favors the Kinkais. You'd have to say you're looking for Hebo to get online late game. You're looking for Freya to get more items online. Certainly, she's doing very well in that department. So actually, you're not too worried if you're Kinkais at all, because this is the most you've been allowed to play in an early game this entire set. And part of that is down to Asta not quite having the same impact on this Raven, which is, again, quite surprising given the pick. But what it actually means is that the Kinkais feel much more comfortable to just go around, farm the map, and get items online. And it will favour them the longer this goes.
That's going to be the key. Because I remember saying this in Game 1, that something's got to give, but it was for completely different context.
Yes,
but that's
yes.
the case here, too. Something's got to give. Somebody's got to start making the aggressive plays. We've seen Kinkais be the most aggressive, certainly with objectives and rotations, as we saw earlier. I mean, you called it. Tatri came out of nowhere and snuck behind the entirety of LWUB. But we got to start seeing, not necessarily right this second. There's still plenty of time before we get to this point. But once we're in that mid 20-minute, close to 30-minute mark, we got to start seeing somebody make plays happen, even if it's off the back of the Titans fighting.
And my concern is that if LWUB don't do that, they're just going to fall off much harder than Kinkais are. Wukong will be okay. They don't have a lot of backline shred to kill the Wukong and the lockdown. It's okay with the Horus, but you're not too bad. Raven, again, will scale okay. Scylla, we know, will scale like a monster. The biggest concern for me is this duo lane. Anho, again, as long as you're close to parity in terms of levels, it's the Kuzenbo for me that the big concern. You've picked this Kuzenbo quite early. You've gone for a kill lane. That hasn't really worked in your favor. You've got a couple of kills, but you're starting to not really feel like you're not really having a big impact. You can't use the reason we see Kuzenbo so much is that he can't count as ADCs, right? Are you really countering a Freya particularly? Close. The Kuzenbo for me is the big concern because, again, you want to play it aggressively, but I'm not sure that's going to suit the way they're playing at the moment because there's not really any engage coming out from LWUB at all.
And where can they find it? I mean, we've laid it out. You have a Kuzenbo, like there should be options here, and it's working on Horus, but not enough for Chase. I mean, LWUB with the beacon coming up, I'm forcing a fight here. I'm taking advantage of the damage I've got, and while we're still even, and like you said, before you lose what makes your team good, I mean, this beacon is the time.
Yeah. And we just saw an example of their engagement. Garrett get a pretty good push onto the Horus in the mid lane and actually got a lot of damage out. But again, there's just not enough follow-up at the moment. I suppose that's the real issue. But again, lots of aggression. Frenzy's been popped, and maybe now the Kuzenbo coming into its own. But again, you would say it's not really favouring anyone at the moment.
Somersault Cloud could help change that on Rogami, but Horus able to escape. But the beacon should be open for LWUB, unless Home Sweet Home has anything to say about it. That did actually force a significant retreat. Kinkais is here, all healthy, but they're not in the beacon ring. So the beacon's going to go to LWUB despite how good Kinkais was positioned. Maybe this is why. Zenico on the landing, and he's going to get a hit. But the ult was better. I'm a monster. Going to find a home, but not quite one-shotting just yet. So beacon goes to LWUB. Fight after will go tier 1 to Kinkais.
Yeah, I just figured out why that fight was so... Because Zenico wasn't actually there. I don't hate that decision. You're level 18. You're pretty well farmed. Again, despite the 2 early deaths, but and actually now you are going to actually get a Gold Fury as well. That's maybe a bit of an oversight from They shouldn't really have allowed this to happen, especially with the comp that the King Kais have. You know, we saw how comfortably they were able to take the objective in that mid lane because you're able to force the one tank out essentially. And oh well, it's just 3 mages, and even though we've got a lot of zone control, none of them can step up to us. So that was fine. And then you're like, well, actually, why aren't you sticking around for Gold Fury? There, just a bit of a lapse in concentration there, and I think that comes with the slower pace. Once again, we've already talked about it, but again, Asta hasn't really done a lot in this early game, certainly compared to game 1 and 2. And maybe we'll see something here, but unlikely to kill Zenico, I'd have thought.
Worth mentioning, there's potentially burnout too after 2 long games.
That's fair.
That could be a bit of what's happening here. Zenico able to escape the 2 so far with the help of his hammer. Won't be chased out either. 20 minutes on the clock currently, 2-3. Kinkais versus LWUB. The gold lead is 2K favoring Kinkais. But that 2K isn't leading to much opportunity so far, as we've been harping on, certainly.
That's true.
But the later and later we get, we know what these two teams have. I mean, game 1 was blood nonstop, so I wouldn't be surprised to see further. Currently, a lot of posturing at Pyromancer, and look at that duo lane. Storming Shadows getting a sneaky tier 2. We saw this. This is shades of game 1, actually. Or game 2, pardon me, with the Shibalanke. Kinkais will pick out the Pyromancer as Storming Shadows is heading to the Phoenix. They're going to call it off wisely. But Zenico just used hammer, blink forward from Asta. Will they get him in time? No, they won't. Just too tanky.
Pre-nerf Raven might have killed that. Just saying. That was
Oh, for sure.
pretty fine margins, but again, you've got to say I'm surprised that L letting this. They're letting, I don't know, they're kind of letting the game being run by Kinkais. Now I don't mind the split push, and they recognise that actually we're down our ADC here. Anha is pretty strong at the moment, and probably still doing a bit more than Scylla at this stage. So you do need to fight around that more than anything. It's odd though, isn't it? Because we're talking quite down on LWUB at the moment. They're not doing anything particularly wrong. They're not doing anything particularly bad, but you feel that they just need to step up the pace a bit, because the longer this goes, as we say, you're really going to be relying on Scylla. And actually, this is an early
like
fire
this.
giant pull. We've seen
like
Kinkais
this.
do this before, and it's not always worked for them, but actually they drop off pretty early here.
They did, because they did get caught out. I liked it if it was full sneaky,
Yeah.
but the Scylla was able to catch it out. And now it's going to turn into a fight, and I've said this before, but watch the bottom of the map, because Storming Shadows is pushing up that dual lane while this fight commences. In the sky goes Zenico on the landing, gonna find somebody. We're not used to that quite so, but the stun was perfect from Garrett to stop the teleport from Zenico. Now spin to win, creates space for a monster, and that damage is
Phoenix
good.
is gone.
And Phoenix is completely gone. Storming Shadows with a successful split
Big
push. Now, Freya, Tatri here doing damage, finds 1 kill. The rest of Kinkais trying to group up
So
and
low.
react, but they're
There's a
so
tower.
spread, and they're all so low. There's a 1v1 in the duo side. Storming Shadows getting the better so far. Double kill for Tatri, as now they're going to
What's
chase
going
down
on?
even more. Storming Shadows wins the 1v1 with a Thor in the bottom left of the map, and now LWUB and Kinkais finally splitting
Yeah,
off,
he
but
missed
not
the
quite
wolf out.
yet. The tower is gonna find it. Even the tower got a kill in this fight. Everybody's getting one. Give one to Zet. Give one to your mom. One to the tower. Phoenix to LWUB. Tower to Kinkais. Absurdity across the map.
So I think I might be wrong. That was a 2-for-1 in the 2-for-2. I'm keeping up. I can do maths. But unbelievable scenes, all fighting around this tier 1 tower. I think the tier 1 tower did the most damage of anyone in that team fight. That was ridiculous. How many people had to
MVP.
tank it on no HP. Now, it is worth saying, yes, Storming Shadows got that left-hand side Phoenix. Is that more valuable? Honestly, at this stage, it probably is. I think also got a kill as well. Onto,
Yeah, solo the Thor.
that I think that makes it all right. Overall, unbelievable fight. I
Which, by
want
the
to
way,
watch that again.
That build, soloing a Thor with the build pairing there,
Yes.
that's kind of crazy.
And I think that is something we're seeing, the kind of hybrid solo bruiser procking builds that we're seeing. late game, you cannot tank ADCs very effectively at all. Certainly not in a straight 1v1. And Storming Shadows just proved that with all this pen online, with the King Kai's, the King size, I should say, it's going to be really tough for them if they want to take that 1v1. And that's why I think it's a really good idea to do the split push. More so than when they had the Shibalonke, because this time, who are you going to send back? Are you going to send back your solo laner, who really is the only one frontlining at this stage? Or do you send back a damage dealer? But again, once you send back a damage dealer, you always risk losing the 1v1 because it's just damage v damage. And that's always going to be a really tough decision to make. And now, of course, Storming Shadows can come into the team fight because they've already got the left-hand side Phoenix. There's nothing else to split push. Now it's very much in their favor because of the map pressure they have.
All right, let's figure out where we're at. 25 minutes. It's 5-4. Pyro went to LWUB. Titans on the map. That last beacon went the way of Kinkais. They're going to meet in the solo lane, which is very important for LWUB because with that Phoenix down in the duo lane, that means that Kinkais is forced to make a decision here of either who to send to defend or to give up the Titan fight. They do catch out Apple Toast, and they almost delete Apple Toast, able to get to that Somersault Cloud and get to the safety of the team. And they're meeting here before Titan has arrived, and they actually have Rex very cleanly pushing out that duo lane. So there's going to be a lot of potential at this Titan fight for really Kinkais to actually do something.
Yeah, they've actually played that pretty smart. Again, they know that pressure is in left. They know that that's going to become a problem, so they get here nice and early. They poke out Apple Toast, who, does have a TP, didn't actually use it. I was using it now, in fact, to come back full HP. So that's suddenly not quite so earth. And Cheeto getting a little bit of poke, actually. This is going to turn around.
I like the damage spread from Storming Shadows there because that's forced Kinkais to back up. But the Titans are just now meeting, and the time they bought is gone because Fire Minions are standing at the Phoenix. They're actually probably going to kill that Phoenix before it can be saved from Zenico. Doesn't have a lot of damage. He uses the wall first. Left side, Phoenix going to survive. Order Titan forced to die. So now aggression for LWUB. They've got the advantage to head in. Another fire wave goes into the Phoenix ring. As now Kinkais poked out, Titan advantage leans for LWUB. So Phoenix saved, but it's got 1 HP basically. And now with the Titan marching down solo, Kinkais' choices are out the window. They have to defend now because that Titan is a problem.
Yeah, and remember, of course, they're outnumbered throughout all of this. Now Zen going to have another pushing with this Titan. Get as aggressive as you can. Health bars are actually pretty much fine here. They need to get aggressive with this and use the numbers advantage in their favor, and they are kind of doing that.
They do stop the Titan before they lose their tier 2, which is massive.
Oh, a monster!
I'm a monster! Not able to find the pick onto Horus, but LWUB is going to full commit. They're going to sell out for this tier 2 tower, and they still haven't gotten it. Zenico going to go into the sky, but the rest of Kinkais had to retreat. So the options there are slim. It's really, at this point, only Cheeto on the defense on this Hebo, and LWUB going to read the situation and decide not to go for it further. They pick up the tier 2, take the winnings, and head back to reset. A lot of chaos has led us to a 28-minute game that isn't that much different than when I talked about the game at 25 minutes.
Very true. You have to say that probably favors Kinkais a lot because they managed to save that left-hand Phoenix just now, regenerating a little bit of health. There's no more fire waves to worry about, so that is going to need a concerted split push from someone, probably the Anha, let's be honest, to really push that down again. So now you're back to a slightly more even keel because you can defend this fire giant. You don't have to worry about fire minions, and you don't have to worry about the damage to your Phoenix or your Titan. So now you can start positioning, start grouping up as 5 around this fire giant. You're in a much more stable position, and you didn't really lose anything in response. You lost a tier 2 tower off of that Titan push. You're very, very happy with how that went.
With how even we are, coming up on 30 minutes, I feel like we're either in for a quick end after an EFG or we're in for another marathon. I mean, only the teams can decide. We're just here for the ride at this point, but I wouldn't be surprised to see another long one.
Yeah, I think so. It's all going to come down to, I think, who, is Zoriak going to hit a big ult? Because really, and we often say this.
It's a big wall.
Well, okay.
No follow-up yet. I'm a monster. Was
There's
really
the
good.
damage.
The spin to win helps out too. Crushing wave used defensively. House. Doing numbers, trying to clean up the Horus, but they're not able to find it yet. Asta the Pasta actually has to reposition too. It's only the one pick there. We both, you stopped. I interrupted you because we both thought that was going to be that fight that we keep talking about. But they keep starting these 5-on-5 engagements. A pick happens, and it's like both teams panic.
Yeah, I think you're right, actually. The problem is, of course, that neither of these teams are particularly coordinated in terms of the drafts they pick. We talked about the lack of sort of setup for the Scylla. That's been kind of resulting in these very wayward-looking, scrappy team fights. You'd have to say it's probably the same for the King Kais. Yes, they've got a Horus to maybe engage, but Horus isn't doing much of that at the moment. Horus is doing a lot of sort of trying to peel off frontliners more than anything and keep people out of their carry's way, essentially. And it all means that it's very scrappy. It's kind of going back to what we saw in the first two games, low kill team fights where people are getting away with low HP bars, more so this game actually than any other. But what that will result in is that these fire giants are never going to be particularly free. We've seen how risky it is to try and do fire giant when there are 4 or 5 members still up. You basically can't do it. You have to get at least 3 or 4 kills before you can ever hope to do that. That's going to be the difference. And who does that better than a Scylla? We know Scylla can do that better than anyone. Scylla can win you a game on your own with one big ultimate and a good reset. It hasn't happened yet. When it does, though, and again, the longer this game goes, we saw it with Thor in game number 1, the chances are one of these ults will hit good.
Have to. This EFG has to be the priority for me. Honestly, maybe I'm meta-mining too much because of our perspective, but I'm using this EFG as a bait point just to get a commit and force a fight from the other team. Because they're not going to want to give it up for free, so you can use that as your advantage to go in and go crazy, because for once, you know where they're going to be.
Yeah, I fully agree. The problem is both teams want to do that. and then and so I suppose it's about who gets better positioning. But we've seen both these teams back and forth. Sometimes where you think, oh, King Kais are stepping up now, but it's been LWUB as well. It's so hard to call. And again, it comes down to the lack of engage, because both these junglers, they've got the blinks available, the only blinks available in the game. Are you going to blink, root, ult someone as a Raven? It's a bit difficult to do. You're certainly not going to do it as a Hebo either. So neither jungler can really engage first. You're looking for a tank to do that, and unfortunately it's the Horus and the Kuzenbo. And again, they don't have blinks. They don't have a way to get in because the backline is shredding them.
King Kai's been walking around like a pack looking for an opening, and I'm a Monster's going to hit 3 because they've walked around grouped for so long. LWUB does have an opening, and Asta the Pasta finds one. Xenico up in the air on the landing finds a stun, but can't hard commit. Actually changes targets and finds one. Aegis pot from Storming Shadows. Now the body block is good too, and Xenico can't get through to Storming Shadows at the top fight.
Wow.
Bottom fight still going out, and that's going to be a pick up from Zoriat. On to Xenico. The rest of LWUB has been taking a 2v3, but they didn't have their backline, and Tatri is going to make them pay and finds Apple Toast. But look from around the side, because Zoriat is here and half health and feeling aggressive, but both abilities go wide, and he doesn't find a pick at the end of it. A missed opportunity, but it's so hard to say what could have been right. That was messy from both teams. The split fight was certainly the death of it, but you can't deny the nice save to keep Storming Shadows alive. But again, they're such a match for each other that it leads to just pure chaos.
And in the end, everyone's back where we started once again. We've seen it before. Now they are going to get a Gold Fury, so that's a nice little boost, I suppose. And that's a result of having won what is a 2-for-1 trade, which at this stage of the game doesn't really feel relevant at all. You need to get more substantial wins than that, and I don't think there's a lot that LWUB did wrong. I mean, the ultimate from Scylla was, I think it hit 3 or 4 people, didn't get a reset though, and that's the difference, isn't it? And I suppose you just say, well, a bit unlucky that we didn't have a bit more poke. Neither side are poking particularly well, but as soon as that engage happens, it's an all-out scrap. It's going to be about who hits more stuff. Because Xenico, on the back end, couldn't quite hit that final hammer. It was some good body blocks, as you mentioned, from Zoriat. Scrappy stuff. Hard to call either way, but I do kind of think the amount of time that Zenico bought with that ultimate and was basically fighting 1v2 against the backline. You really should be able to do a bit more if you're King Kai's. You know, with these 3 big damage dealers and a Horus, you should be able to pick off more than just Japple Toast for me. So that's a bit of an issue for me. I'm not sure how that didn't happen with what Zenico was able to do, but long may it continue, because I think Zenico, even though he didn't get the kill, did a lot right there, and you really ask from.
At 35 minutes, it's 6-7. The winner moves to the finals again. The loser, they have to wait in the loser's bracket and fight their way through. It's not where you want to be, and they're both showing that's not where they want to be. An absolute bloodbath. It's going to continue because that's a pick on the Horus, and LWUB have created their new entry point. They just have to take advantage. Robin looks for Zenico, but can't quite find it. But now Thor poked out, Cheeto poked out as well. LWUB stepping further. They're moving beyond the EFG. They're looking for picks at this point, but they can't go for it. They're going to walk back and probably start off the EFG, but it could be a bait. And with how Kinkais is walking back towards the EFG, if LWUB's ready, they could get a pick here.
Yeah, they need to bait them in a little bit more. Again, do what you've been doing just tanking up the Fire Giant. They don't have any sustain, which is a bit of a problem, but Kuzumo can stay on there for a while, and then you're looking for, you know, just bait them in a little bit more with your front line. Problem is, again, that there's not a ton of CC, there's not a ton of setup coming out from LWUB. So even if they do have positional advantage, even if they do have the vision, they don't necessarily have the lockdown and the setup long enough to actually kill someone. Because, you know, even though they got that one pick, you can't try and do Fire Giant when there's 4 other people on the map. It's just too risky.
I would have loved an upgraded sprint to get some roots off from LWUB. They're trying to create that CC you're talking about.
Yeah, I think that could have been really good, actually. I mean, we've got Garrett who has gone the Frenzy and the Shell. Not great with them as much as I thought usually, but I see what you mean absolutely there. Getting a massive AoE root on everyone would be really valuable, especially when you see the characters you're up against. You know, Hebo and Freya are going to really struggle into that. It might, yes, you might help a bit. If you don't go that, where's your blink? I think you need something to help you engage, because as we mentioned about 10 minutes ago, nothing's changed since then. Asta can't do it on his own.
Now, with EFG potentially on the menu at any point, both teams are doing the EFG dance. There's some light poke on Garrett, but same thing can be said for Horus. And now King Kais might have found their opening, but I'm a Monster hits big on Tatri and forces Tatri away. Now Zenico actually looking aggressive, but completely alone in this. If the call is to go, but they just land down instead and didn't even hit the fire. So now King Kais has burned Thor Ultimate, and for really no gain, I'm a Monster is also down for LWUB, and at least they poked out Tatri for the moment. But even that's been healed up, so we're back to square one of this EFG dance.
How many square ones can there be in a set? We are back there once again. Fair. But the fact is, it's one ultimate traded each. I think with the space that Zenico created there, all of LWUB were backing up because they knew, oh, there's a Thor coming in here. We don't have great vision. They could be looking to jump on us here. You could have at least landed on FG, try and pull it at least, or again, just bait them in a little bit. I think that's all you have to do. Tatri healed up, no problem. Has enough life steal and sustain in the build now that's not going to be an issue, despite getting smacked for half HP by the Armor Monster. It's just the same keeps happening. The problem is neither side are particularly unhappy if the same keeps, because neither side are just really losing at this point. The issue is when that one Scylla reset does happen, it will be game over.
Their dancing shoes are so scuffed right now. I mean, you're never using them again. You might
No.
have to buy new dancing shoes. Dancing shoes are expensive. Have you seen the prices of like tap shoes?
I can't say I have, but no.
LWUB looking for a new opening, and they're gonna get a push, but it's into a 3-man knockup. I'm a monster on the follow, does good damage, but House is doing more than that. But Kinkai still has to retreat. LWUB gonna go for the chase, and they're gonna follow Apple Toast. But Zeniko on the land down, hit the decoy. Get you baited, Zeniko. That's not good for Kinkai. They've been pushed off completely. They've expended 3 ultimates, and they're still vulnerable. Now they're going to go for it, but Astapasta couldn't find a kill off of going in from the blink, and LWUB couldn't find it. Matter of fact, that's going to be a drop from Brex, but there was a 1-for-1 trade. LWUB still going to chase out. They're going to chase them all the way down the solo lane if they have to. Crush him over the wall, couldn't find Horus. LWUB needs a new opening. They get the root, crushing wave forced out. They chase them all the way back to their throne room. That's absurd from LWUB, but they don't get fire. Run to the fire giant. I know that Zats has been saying it, but come on. There has to be an EFG poll. There has to be something off of these picks. We've seen it so many times. We're at 40 minutes. We have these fights, all these cool moments. I talk so fast, and yet nothing will come from it quite yet.
Hey, guess what? We are back where we started again.
I'm not saying square one again, I promise.
No, I'm trying desperately to think of another alternative to that. I honestly
back to kindergarten.
Sure, we'll go with that. We went down the snake in Snakes and Ladders. I don't know, but that's square one again. I don't know what more you can do. Again, the Silveralt was hitting pretty good. There's just not quite enough follow up, weirdly, and you never say that off for Silveralt. But the fact is, Zoria has been using the Armor Monster to just hit multiple people for masses of damage. You need someone to finish them off, and Asta was able to kind of do that in that fight, was able to blink in and get a pick. I think it was onto Taptree to make it a 1-for-1. But again, the margins are too small and the gains are not big enough to ever have a chance of getting a fire giant. But surely you've got to be, I suppose, looking at, well, can we maybe split push our way out of this? Can we look to take a tower out of this? But they're looking to pull this here. This has traditionally not worked this set so far. Let's see if it does this time.
Zeniko got poked out before he
ton of
get in the
damage.
Sky. He's lurking. He found a target on the landing. He gets caught off by everything, but he still finds the kill. Storming Shadows is gone. That's no honor. Taptree got one too. That's already 2 down. Kinkais is knocking on the doors of a final, and they didn't even need the dancer on EFG. They just needed some kills. Now they're gonna chase further. They've got an opening. A banish will help out for Asta. That's another kill. Cheeto found that one. Hey, believers, stand up, baby, because Kinkais is on the verge of a deicide. They've got 5 strong, ready to go. They've got 40 seconds. Will they go for EFG or Titan? But they're walking towards the EFG.
I think they... the problem is there was still a tier 1 tower during that fight. And at that point,
so much tankiness.
Man, we could have gone for the tier 2. No, we can't. Because there's still a tier 1 tower there. That could have opened the door for an end. But now they have to go for this EFG. I mean, it would be a big ask of Appletoast to out-secure here. But anything's possible in this set.
Somersault Cloud already used. He's doing good so far. He's going to pick up a kill on the Cheeto. And the Fire Giant's down to a quarter. And Appletoast still alive for the time being. Still in the bird to ring around the Rosie while they're taking the Fire Giant. But he will get picked up. And Kinkais will get the Fire Giant. We finally have one taken. It only took us 43 minutes before we had the first Fire Giant taken.
And there's still a tier 1 tower in Solar Lane. I can't bear this anymore. Unbelievable fight. It always looked like it was. I have to say, massive credit goes to Appletoast. I love the play that they made. Knew that the Fire Giant steal was unlikely, to say the least, possible. And Appletoast could have gone for it, could have held that Somersault Cloud, but really then you're just holding DPS because you know that's the steal potential. Actually, Appletoast goes, well, actually, I've got a ton of damage. I'm just going to land on Cheeto whilst you're tanking Fire Giant. It's the perfect play. And too often we see in those 1v5 situations, I'll go for the 1% steal and be a hero. But actually, what's more important is getting Enhanced Fire Giant off of Cheeto and slowing down their push that little bit more. It's kept them in this game, I think.
Oh boy. That's the tier 2 in solo lane gone. 43 minutes. 3 games all over 40 minutes. LWUB and Kinkais clearly the best of the best from this division. You said it earlier, I wouldn't be surprised if whoever does go to loser bracket just finds their way back for a rematch, because this is completely absurd. And there's been signs of that lower divisionness, sure. There's been some. I mean, that was our first Fire Giant at 42 minutes, which is insane. But the quality of mechanics, for the most part, has just been off the walls. And, I mean, there's been chances to potentially end, as we saw before. But there's been defenses, there's been everything you want. But I'll say it one last time. At a certain point, something has to give.
And I'm not really sure what it is, because I think the defense is pretty good with a Scylla. Oh, they're actually going to go into the air. I don't mind this. Push them all. Make the space. Now they're going to try and knock on the...
But on the landing, Zenico didn't find anybody, and he's getting CC'd for, but they did get a Phoenix. Now, Apple Toast going to try to separate the back from the front, but LWUB has actually retreated off of the ultimate, and everyone's still full health for Kinkais. An absolutely perfect siege of that left side.
Yes! Where are they going to go?
Oh, the Horus play! That's gorgeous. They're going to go to Primal? Phoenix! They're going to Phoenix. He was just facing the wrong way, but they baited B even. Now they're heading towards the middle Phoenix, but they're getting matched by LWUB. Kuzenbo with the push back. Now the responses are good. Everybody's getting dropped pretty low on Kinkais, and LWUB are still close. They didn't get the mid Phoenix, but they took a lot of damage. Freya ultimate forced 2. Kinkais has expended a lot, Zats, but I don't know if I love staying here much longer.
No, I initially thought, well, maybe this surprise Horus play might work, but they don't have any Pyromancer bombs. It's actually a really tough call because they've just used everything, and now they're still sticking around.
Apple Toast, the only person poked out from LWUB, but they do get that mid-Phoenix. The retreat begins from Kinkais. 2 Phoenixes richer. Only one remaining is that solo lane Phoenix. I mean, it wasn't pretty, but it got the job done.
And the ironic thing is the first siege really was pretty. It was fantastic to watch the way Zenico up into the Anvil of Dawn. Never had no intention of killing anyone or setting up for anyone, but created so much room. You could see the fear in LWUB's eyes as they all backed up and gave just enough space for Taptree to get into that Phoenix. And they took it very, very quickly. And the disengage was also fantastically good. I thought they might go for a Gold Fury or just everyone out of there with a Horus. That would have been really clean. They probably didn't even need to do that. But the fact is, they've got 2 Phoenixes off the board. They've got the important, the crucial left-hand side Phoenix. Now there's Fire Waves to deal with, and that will put them in prime position for this next enhanced Fire Giant. Now, the last time they won this fight, they still had a tier 1 tower up in solo. Now the base is exposed. If it happens again, LWUB are going to be in big, big trouble. Game over.
LWUB has to play perfect defense, and they've got 2 tough Phoenixes to do it on. And Kinkais, they've got to clean it up, because we've seen them playing well. Absolutely, I won't argue that, but we have not seen them play clean. I'm going to go back to game 1. When you said Kinkais is their key to win, their goal should be coordinated dive. And it's 3 games later, and we've maybe seen that 4 times in total into this set. But if they clean it up, if they pull it together for one true engagement, I don't think LWUB can respond, and I don't think they can handle Kinkais.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's just too much damage coming out from the back line with these triple mage comp, essentially. And Zenico is doing too much work zoning people by just being there. And regardless of the fact that Zenico can actually kill a backliner if given enough time and space in a 1v1, possible. But regardless of that, just the space being created, and they're looking for the lockdown here. Not going to get it onto Garrett. We're back to an FG dance, but the ticking time bomb, those fire waves in left, are going to start to push up towards that Titan. They've got to be wary of that. So if they want to take a fight, it has to be soon, or they don't take the fight at all.
They hard commit on Apple Toast, but then they call it back. But they found Garrett, and they poked out Garrett significantly, and that's going to be a watery grave forced out as well. So LWUB, that's going to buy time. They can't contest. Kinkais is going to get an EFG. If LWUB step up, this is danger, but they're rushing for it. They have time to get there. I'm not sure about this call. Storming Shadow is very pushed
Wow.
up, going aggressive,
Wow.
crushing wave, gonna find it, and that's a
Cheeto.
huge pick. That's a big mistake from LWUB. They lose their ADC for 70 seconds, and EFG will go the way of Kinkais. Massive, massive problem.
Ooh!
The Horus ultimate now lands in solo lane.
What an
It's going to
aegis.
be a pick on Apple
Wow.
Toast. And that's two. I said it before. Now stand on your chair, believers, because Kinkais is running it down. Thor ultimate lands. They're looking for a third. They're going to find Zoriat. That's gonna do it! Kinkais in the throne room! 2 to respond! Finals on the horizon for Kinkais! All they've got to do is
Kill a
focus on the Titan, but they were looking at us and the pasta! That did buy time, Titan half health! They're still on it, crushing away for a kill! And that'll do it! Kinkais going to the lower division finals!
I was a believer the entire time, but Cheeto winning the game almost single-handedly gets the pickup onto the Unha with a fantastic ultimate. Unbelievable stuff, and that opened the door for the EFG, and they ran it down from their great Horus ult. Fabulous to watch. They played that to perfection. Well done, Kinkais. Thoroughly deserved.
Absolutely absurd. You went from a hater to a believer for Team Cheeto by the end of it. And now Kinkais gets to sit pretty with a crown on for the time being and wait for their opponent in the finals. But LWUB season doesn't end here. They get to go to losers bracket. And if I'm in losers bracket and I see these games and I see that talent, not just from the season, but in this set, I mean, there's a very good chance that LWUB make it back to the finals for a rematch of this set.
Very possible, and wouldn't that be incredible to watch? I would love to see it personally. And again, if you're in the losers bracket, you will be looking at this team and thinking the way they dominated, especially the first two games in that early game, that will need to be dealt with by other teams. And I'm sure they'll be able to come up with a plan for it. But actually, once it got to that late game, it was all about the Kinkais, and everything they did was so clear. There were some moments where you thought, well, they could have done that a bit better. But in the end of the day, they had enough margin that they were able to make a few sort of risky plays, and they got away with it because they'd played everything else so cleanly. And that's why I think they won that crucial game 3.
That was one to remember. Absolutely. I am beyond impressed by both of these teams, and I am now more than ever looking forward so much to the finals of the lower division, because whoever goes against Kinkais, we talked about it for LWUB heading to the losers bracket, whoever faces Kinkais, they've got a mountain to climb. My advice is definitely keep Cheeto off the Thor, first of all. Absolute monster there.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
realistically,
mental
it's going to
games.
be tough. That is a tough challenge in the finals. One last look at the bracket to see what we have to expect. LWUB has been taken out of the semifinals. They will head to the losers bracket, while Kinkais will be vibing and thriving, waiting in the finals for competition. Give me your last thoughts, my friend, and what we saw today and what we can look at going forward.
Well, it's been a privilege and an honor, because that was one of the best sets I've seen in a very long time. Two incredibly competitive teams. That these were touted as the best of the best in the lower division. I think the lower division is almost cruel. The way these two played was fantastic to watch. There was some highlight reel plays from everyone. I think everyone had their starring moment, and that was just so great to watch. And if you're in middle division, I'd be looking out at all these players, because there's clearly a lot of talent on show here. And it was a pleasure to watch. Congratulations to both teams, but especially to the Kinkais making it to the final. They can relax now, and so can everyone else after a barn burner of the set.
For the time being, certainly. And it was a pleasure casting with you, my friend. I am Anthony Malum. Today, I have been joined by Zats, and Ginger Archer has been running production for us and doing it fantastically. This was the GSL semifinals. Keep your eye out for more GSL action, as the playoffs are, as you can tell, they're pushing their motor and they're exciting. We'll see you next time on GSL.